The Superman of the absolute universe escaped his dying planet as a young boy before arriving on Earth, where life did not get much easier, as he finds himself in a world controlled by Lazarus Corp and up against the likes of Brainiac and Ra's al Ghul. Today, you'll get caught up with the full story. 9 million light years from Earth, the planet of Krypton is a bustling metropolis. The sprawling city centers of such places as Kandor are ruled by the clerics of the Science League. Kandor is full of lab-grown gardens and powered by lava-fused energy plants. Krypton is ruled by a class-based system. Kryptonians wear the symbol of their class on their chest, with the Science League lording over all. And the elves? We're not among them. We find Lara L out in the Redlands, the vast farming centers of Krypton. She works underneath an ancient machine, trying to get it working for the farmer. The old man sighs and stands, looking up at the sky, his chest covered in the S of the working class. Clerics charged me for an early morning downpour, but I haven't seen so much as a drizzle. The old farmer sighs. Lara shrugs from her place beneath the tractor. You know how it is with the Science League. The science always takes a bit longer when it's for the Redlands, she points out. She slides out from beneath the tractor and gives it a pat. The farmer smiles as the engine rumbles to life. You're the only mechanic around who's been able to keep this old girl running. He nods as the tractor rumbles off to complete its work. Lara smiles. She's such a classic, from the days when things were still made by somebody's hands, she tells him with a shrug. Overhead, drones fly over the farmlands. Looks like your rain finally showed up, Lara says as she motions to the drones. The rain starts quickly after the drones drop their cloudy payload, drenching the two and the farmlands. About damn time. Come on, let's get inside before we get drenched, the farmer says. But Lara doesn't move. She opens her arms wide and raises her face to the sky, letting the precious water fall over her as it quenches the dry farmlands of the red. You paid a lot for this rain. Don't you want to get your money's worth? She asks. There was a time when Lara was on the fast track for the Science League. But as a child, she wrote a report that criticized Krypton's lack of funding for interstellar exploration. She was labeled unruly and forbidden from applying to the League. She was 9 years old. Meanwhile, Jor-El makes his way into the mines deep beneath the planet. Sun crystals sparkle around him as he moves with the workers, shining their lights. Warning sirens continue to sound, ordering the miners to evacuate. Jor-El stops and looks around. I'm not seeing anything at all. No stress fractures, no dimpling, nothing that looks like the start of a sinkhole or a cave-in. He says with a sigh, turning to the lead miner. Your diggers are sure they heard splintering, he asks. The man nods, repeating that his diggers said it was the loudest that they had ever heard. Jor-El crouches, putting a hand to the warm crystals around them. There's no danger down here, just some diggers who lost their nerve. We need to reopen their mine, but you're the lead engineer. It's your call, Jor-El, one of the leaders says. Jor-El pauses for a moment, thinking over the issue. But suddenly, there is shouting behind them. What is the meaning of this? Why are my workers standing around topside and not digging sunstone? A man says as he pushes his way forward, the symbol of middle management on his chest. The workers try to explain, but Jor-El sighs and stands up, turning to the manager. I shut it down. I'm here from geological engineering, and I have some concerns about this mine's stability, Jor-El says, explaining that the mine will stay shut until he can have his drill probes make sure that it's safe. The manager glares at Jor-El and points down at his own chest. Take a good look at my chest, then glance down at yours. Now go march yourself upstairs and tell those diggers the League of Middle Management said to get their sorry skin sacks back to work, the manager shouts. But Jor-El ignores him and turns away, calling that he'll launch the probe himself. You must be the dumbest laborer ever crawled his way out of the red wastes, the manager sputters with anger. Suddenly, The cavern begins to rumble around them and shake. The sunstones crack beneath their feet. Jor-El whirls and shouts for everyone to run to the surface. But it's already too late, and the ground splits beneath their feet, and green acid suddenly spits into the cavern. Jor-El tries to help those behind him, but the liquid has already eaten through the suits of the others, and their screams of painful death filled his ears. Krypton was dying. Present day, Earth, Brazil. The miners stand before the entrance to the diamond mine. The last few days were filled with asbestos snow, blown into the sky by the mining and poisoning the very air the miners breathed. But it had suddenly stopped. The leader of the people look into the sky. "No snow today. Must be a good sign, eh?" Joao says to his friends. The peacemakers of Lazarus Corp motion the workers into the mine. Lazarus has promised the workers a bonus if they could finish the mine today. Inside, the miners are shocked to find that the diamonds have already been mined and waiting for them in the mine carts. "What the hell?" someone whispers, holding up their lanterns, the light bouncing off their precious stones. Others are looking around. The diamonds have already been crushed, and there's no asbestos in the air. It's simply gone, someone whispers. Joao looks to his friends, telling them not to worry about their good fortune. He grabs one of the carts and starts to push it towards the entrance. "We say nothing. Our work here is done, brothers and sisters. Do you understand me? All that's left is for us to take these diamonds to the surface and claim our pay," he says with a smile. As the workers come back out of the mine, the peacemakers are surprised at how quickly they finished. One of Joao's friends walks gently by his side. "Joao, who do we really think did this?" he asks. It was the previous night when Joao had been approached by the young man. The snow had fallen from the sky, poisoning the lungs of any who breathed in the air. He had been approached by the young man who was new to the camp. His eyes seemed to glow with the most brilliant blue, and Joao had offered him a place to rest and eat dinner. "Join us. You will be family," Joao had offered. But the young man shook his head. "I've seen the wonders of your world. And I've seen places like this, industries run on suffering," he says softly as he turned to leave. "I have to go, more work to do. But thank you," the man had whispered before disappearing into the darkness of the favela. Now, a peacemaker is standing in his way, lashing out and kicking Joao hard in the jaw and bringing him to the ground. "You think we're stupid? You didn't mine these diamonds yourself. Someone among you enjoys breaking the peace. Who is it?" the peacemaker demands. He pulls out a knife and presses it against Joao's throat, demanding answers. But one of his soldiers rushes up with an answer. "Sir, the head count is complete. All of the workers reported for their shift today. All but one," the soldier says. Nearby, the strange visitor is laying down in his shack. Strange red wires wrapped around his body, pulsing with a strange light. A voice chimes in, warning him of the peacemaker's approach. The man shifts and groans, still dead to the world. "Kal-El!" the voice shouts, forcing him awake. Kal-El awakes with a shout and moves at blinding speed, smashing through the wall and knocking the peacemakers aside before they can open fire. "Contact! Open fire!" one shouts, and the remaining soldiers raise their weapons and fire. Rounds rip through the favela, but they do nothing and bounce off the armor of the strange visitor. Kal-El looks around in frustration. "Will they live if I hit them?" he asks his computer. "Yes, but I still advise against that," Sol responds. But Kal is already moving, hitting them hard and knocking the soldiers away. But the peacemaker weapons adapt to the situation and 3D print higher caliber rounds. They continue to fire, and the heavy rounds drive Kal-El back. He stumbles through the favela, afraid that the workers will be hurt. He pushes his weakened body, moving fast and disarming the soldiers quickly. Kal stops and turns to Joao, who stares at him in shock. "If Lazarus won't pay you, take the diamonds and sell them to someone who will. But please, just get everyone out of here." Cal begins to say, but a blast of energy suddenly hits him from above. Cal lets out a scream of pain, and he falls to his knees as military drones continue to blast him with energy. Above them, Lazarus's paramilitary team is approaching. On board, the team lead turns to his soldiers. The director himself wants the target alive, the lead shouts. He turns to one of his best soldiers, asking her what she sees. She holds up her tablet, showing the drones hovering over the target. His suit, if you look closely, you can see it shifting, changing shape, like living armor. And I'd swear he's also talking to it. Agent Lane reports. But Cal is growing angry, and his eyes begin to glow, and he turns a fiery gaze upon the drones. Heat flows from his body, and the drones are ripped out of the sky from the blast. But the attack weakens Cal, and he crumbles to the ground, the area around him smoking. The workers have managed to escape, but the Lazarus military has arrived. Helicopters and tanks rumble forward. As Cal staggers to his feet, he watches the soldiers approach. "You were right, Soul," he whispers weakly. "This was a bad idea. And I don't feel so great," he gasps. Suddenly, someone rushes at him from the side. The woman launches forward and slaps a handcuff over his wrist. "This is Agent Lane, suspect in custody," Lane shouts as she raises her pistol and points it at Cal's face. "Move, and I fry your face, Superman," she shouts at him. Meanwhile, somewhere below the Nevada desert, someone watches the attack on his monitors. Wires are connected to his head, and small cities surround him. Tiny voices crying out in terror from the bottles. "Well now, what have we here? A new toy? Wonder where you came from," the man whispers as he watches. Years ago, Krypton. Jor-El has returned, staggering through the red fields to his home. Lara meets him, worried about her husband. She looks at his wounds, shocked by the radiation burns. But Jor-El is barely listening to her. "Of course there needs to be testing. I'll need to get started right away," he babbles to himself. Lara grabs her husband and pulls his face to hers, demanding to know what is happening. His eyes focus, and he seems to see her for the first time. "We can't tell anyone yet. You understand? Not until we're certain. We must be certain before we warn the world," he says. Jor-El looks up as his son approaches with the family dog. "Dad, are you okay?" young Kal-El asks. Jor-El finally calms down and hugs his family, apologizing for worrying them. But Lara smiles. "Jor, whatever this is, we'll get through it the way we always do. Together," she says as they hold each other close. But elsewhere in the field, a small crack begins to open in the ground, and a green radiation begins to spill out. Krypton is dying. 6 years ago, in the L house within the Redlands of Krypton, Kal-El leans over his desk and groans. The teacher of his class is grading people on his nearby view screen, but pauses when he gets to Cal's assignment. "Cal, I'm confused about what you've turned in here. Your paper is quite descriptive, but it doesn't appear to employ any generative text at all. You did source the cleric's luminarium, didn't you?" the teacher asks. Cal looks up briefly at his camera. "I wrote it," he says softly. The teacher stares at his image for a moment before nodding briefly. "You wrote this yourself? That's... Cal, I'd like to talk with you and your parents after class," the teacher says before everyone signs off. Now, Earth, Brazil. Cal stares in shock at the woman who recently cuffed herself to his arm. She raises an energy pistol at him, the sparks dangerously close to his face. "Get on your knees," she shouts. Cal raises an eyebrow at her before lifting his arm to stare at the cuff, knocking Lois off her feet. "Okay, let me just..." he says to Soul as he tries to pull the cuff off. "I can't break this," Cal says to his armor, ignoring the fire, smoke, and armed woman before him. "Cal, you are weakened. You are vulnerable here," Soul reminds him. But Cal shrugs as he continues to work. I'm chuffed with her. What do you want me to do, Sol? Rip her arm off? Cal asks. Lois has had enough and raises her weapon, firing a blast into Cal's face. He lets out a groan of pain and stumbles back. I will deal with the handcuffs, Sol tells him. Cal nods. Just don't hurt her, he orders. But other agents of Lazarus have begun to surround them. They raise their weapons, ignoring Lois's orders to stand down. Weapons suddenly thunder in the clearing, and Cal immediately steps in the way of the rounds, protecting Lois from the danger. Suddenly, the armor begins to morph, and a red dust wraps around them, flowing like a cape. Let me go! Get this thing off of me! Lois shouts as she raises the pistol again. Did she forget she's the one who chuffed me? Cal asks Sol, but the adaptive armor is still working. Fascinating. This metal reforms itself as quickly as I can sever it. This will take some time. Also, it's cuffed. Sol informs him, and Lois fires again. Cal is less surprised this time, but still angry. Stop doing that! You're making it very difficult to save your life! He shouts at her. She bares her teeth at him. Oh, so now you're talking to me? She snaps back. Cal looks around and sees the Lazarus forces are getting closer and closer. Large tanks have begun to roll in. Finally, Cal sighs. Sol, use the dust to hold onto her. Don't let this tear her in half, he says. Lois's eyes widen in surprise as the red cloud wraps tighter around her and Cal leaps into the air, taking them away from the conflict at super speed. But a helitank is following them. Holy hell! He's flying! One of the peacekeepers shouts. The tank opens fire and the rounds detonate at the edge of the red cloud. Cal is knocked from the sky, slamming hard into the village below. When the smoke clears, he is standing with Lois in his arms. And Lois raises the pistol and fires again. Cal stumbles and falls to his knees. When he looks up, Lois is on her feet, pistol recharging. This is Agent Lane. Suspect leap due east, she shouts into her comms. But Cal shakes his head. Jammer transmission, he orders Sol. Already done, the armor informs him. Cal sighs and looks up at the woman. I just saved your life several times, and you want to arrest me for it? He asks. But Lois shakes her head. No, you willfully endangered my life by trying to escape lawful custody, which you're not going to do, she snaps at him. She watches him as Cal stands to his full height, demanding to know if it's the suit that gives him power. People have a right to know, she says. But Cal disagrees. Since when does Lazarus give a damn about anyone's rights? He asks, pointing out that the company treats people like slaves and livestock. He shouts at her. But their argument is interrupted by another explosion. Both look up to see the helitank getting closer. Cal reaches out and lifts a nearby car, tossing it at the tank with great strength. The car slams into the tank, knocking it out of the sky. But Cal looks on in horror as it falls out of the sky and slams into a nearby church. He glances back at Lois. The sunstone dust will shield you, he promises. But Lois doesn't hesitate and motions to the building. Never mind me, just go, she orders. Cal leaps forward, slamming through a wall of swirling smoke and fire. Inside the church, he moves quickly, the sunstone dust swirling around to protect Lois and a group of villagers from the destruction. In moments, they are carrying people to safety and laying them in the street. Cal turns back and uses his super breath to put out the fires and save what's left of the town. But the effort has weakened him, and he falls to his knees next to Lois. She stares at the alien visitor, then at the pistol still in her hand. But finally, she sighs and holsters the weapon. This man is not who she thought he was. Cal smiles at her. Thank you, he says softly. Staring at his smile, Lois begins to stumble over her words. You did all the... You're welcome, she finally says. Cal struggles to his feet. They have but a few moments, and so he tries to convey his feelings on this planet. So many stars in the sky are orbited by nothing but chunks of rock and methane. Do you people have any idea how precious a place this is? I'm a child of one of these sons of nothing. My planet, he begins to say. But the handcuffs suddenly click open and fall away, clattering to the ground. Cal stares at his freedom for a moment, and Lois reaches out a hand for him. Wait, don't. Just let me, she begins to say. But Cal leaps up into the sky and rockets away. The full might of Lazarus arrives moments later, but only finds Lois looking up into the sky. Later, Lois sits at a computer in the office, giving her full report to the Brainiac algorithm, explaining that she doesn't think the strange visitor is actually a threat to this planet, that she thinks that he needs to be studied more closely, that she feels like, while he is powerful, he is just as surprised by his abilities as they are. But Lois is unaware that someone is watching her through the computer, that it isn't an algorithm that is responding to her. Agent advises termination. So noted. Brainiac says to Lois's shock, "This completes your after-action report. The Brainiac algorithm thanks you," the computer says before shutting down. Behind her, the door opens and a Lazarus commander walks in, congratulating her on a job well done and ordering her to get some rest. But Lois shakes her head. No, I don't think I'm done with my report. I think I need to write this report myself, Lois says, thinking back on flying with the visitor and helping him save the people in that burning building. The commander shrugs and wishes her good luck before walking out of the room. Lois sighs as she turns back to the computer and begins to type. Sometime in the past on Krypton, Lara and Jor-El are hard at work, preparing for what they know is coming. Lara shows Jor her work, explaining that her design will act as an exploratory spacesuit and rocket ship all in one, though she doesn't know how they will convince the Science League of their findings, and questions what they will do if no one will listen. Jor looks at his wife for a moment before pulling her into a hug. If they won't listen, then I steal all the sunstone I can carry, and you build us a ship big enough to hold everyone we love, he says. They both look out into the field, where Cal is playing with Krypto. And then we hold fast to each other with all the steel in our hearts and lava in our veins. And we aim for the stars, Lara whispers softly. Back on Earth in the present, the peacekeepers are moving through the village after the battle with Cal, angry that the people are looking at them with disdain. Two patrolling soldiers notice that one of their brothers is staring at the villagers, his helmet cracked from this morning's attack. "Hey Smith, you all right? Shouldn't you be with the medics?" they ask. But Smith shakes his head, looking at the villagers in disgust. "They don't get it. Don't appreciate everything we've done to pull them out of the mud," he growls. The others shrug. "Yeah, that's the job though. What are you gonna do?" one of them notes. But Smith just smiles and suddenly raises his weapon. Teach them that peace has a price," he snaps as he squeezes the trigger and opens fire. Krypton, 6 years ago. Kal-El lives a happy life, though he doesn't fall into the mold of a normal Kryptonian child. He was never coordinated enough for sports, always pushed aside by the bigger, more aggressive kids. So he knew that he would never qualify for the Law Guild Training Academy. When it came to his studies, his grades were never good enough to get him into the Science Academy. He didn't like to speak up in class and was always forced to speak with his teachers about the problem. But Cal didn't care. He wanted to work in the Laborers Guild, like his parents. He loved the Redlands, loved to run through the fields with his dog Krypto. His two favorite people in the world were his parents. They would take him for hikes and camping in the purple prairies and rolling pink hills of the Kryptonian countryside. One day, they were hiking into the Red Crystal Caverns, and his parents stopped him. "Cal, we wanted to talk to you about something, son," Jor-El told Cal. His parents explained that Cal's teacher has reached out to them. She said that you've refused to utilize the Science League's Luminarium for your reports, that instead you're writing them yourself. Lara continues. Cal nods, hanging his head as he explains that he just enjoys writing. My words make me happy, he says softly. Both Cal's parents kneel before their son, pointing out that by not using the luminarium, Cal is challenging 3,000 years of Kryptonian tradition. Suddenly, they both smile and ruffle his hair. Keep it up, they say in unison. Cal is shocked. I don't care about your grades. You're the sharpest, most caring kid in the world. We trust you to find your own path, Lara tells him. Cal smiles and tells his parents that he knows he wants to be a laborer and live in the Redlands like them. All three stare out at the Kryptonian plains. The red sun is setting in the distance. The rest of the day was a happy one for Cal, but he didn't know that Jor-El was working, continuing to extract samples from the red crystals, hoping that his findings were wrong, but they weren't. But Cal was aware of the change in his parents. Ever since his father's accident at the mines, he had been distant, distracted. He was constantly going out and taking samples, and Lara used all of her free time to work on something in the garage. Cal would check on them from time to time, overhearing bits and pieces of conversation. We're going to need more sunstone, just to be sure, Lara called one night, unaware that Cal was watching from the doorway. Lara, we don't have much time, Jor told her, explaining that he's almost ready to bring his findings to the Science League, and that hopefully they won't ignore all his evidence. I know, Jor, but when they throw you out of the building and come here and try to take everything we've built, I need to know we'll be done trying to reason with the people who don't respect our voices, Lara had told him. Cal didn't know what they meant, but could tell that his parents were worried. Cal turned away from the garage, distracted by Krypto's barking. Clicking on his flashlight, he shines it at something in the grass. A rabbit was dead. Its body seemed to burn away from a strange green gas. Aw, what happened to the little guy, Krypto? Cal whispered. He moved the light around, shocked to find more creatures who had suffered the same fate. Krypto, where's my bike? Cal whispered. So, Cal did a little investigation of his own. Riding his hoverbike through the plains, he found that the plant life had also suffered from the strange gas that rose up from beneath the earth. Herds of zerts were driven crazy and stampeded off cliffs. Fish were dying off in the Kogo Lake, their bodies floating to the surface of the tainted water. Strange events were happening all over Krypton, and Cal began to write. One of the things he enjoyed most about everything he'd seen, gathering evidence. A week after this started, his class was taking a field trip to the Kandor Science League. Along the way, they saw several events that were reported as natural disasters. Cal continued to write, finishing his story. Before he could stop himself, he had submitted his findings and story to his school's news board. Before they had even arrived in the city, the story was wiped from the school board, and the notes deleted remotely from Cal's computer by the Science League. Cal was dismayed, but followed his class into the Science League. While the other children talked about how they couldn't wait to join the league and work in the city, Cal looked out the window in bewilderment. Why would anyone want to work this far from the ground? He questioned as he looked down at the city far below. But the class was suddenly interrupted by yelling from the hallway. No! I have to see them! Jor-El shouted as the guards tried to pull him away. Cal stepped out, shocked to see his father. You have to listen! I'm a geological engineer. I know what I'm talking about. Your lives are in danger! Jor-El continued, but the captain of the guard shakes his head. Scientific heresy. Threatening officers of the Law Guild? You don't know when to quit, do you, laborer? Let's go, the guard says. Jor turns and sees Cal, shouting for him to head home and tell his mother what happened. But his words are interrupted as one of the guards tases him. Cal rushes at the guards, but they just knock him away. Get out of here, kid. The guard snaps as they drag Jor-El off. Later, Cal returned to the farm, running to tell his mother what's happened. He quickly fills her in as she heads to the garage. Listen to me carefully, Cal, Lara says as she slides open the door and begins to grab gear. I want you with me for this. But if anything goes wrong, you get on your bike and you come back here as fast as you can, and you go straight into that garage and call for Sol, okay? Lara says to Cal as she rushes inside the garage. But Cal is confused as to who Sol is. Hello, I am Sol. How can I be of service? A computer voice calls from the shadows, but Lara waves it away. What are you gonna do, Mom? Cal asks meekly. Lara suddenly turns around, now clad in strange glowing armor and carrying a big gun. I'm gonna get your dad back, she says simply. Later, at the Law Guild office, the doors suddenly explode inward as Lara steps through with her cannon, aided by Crypto, who has a strange red dust cape. Jor-El! Find him, Crypto! Lara shouts as she keeps firing the lava cannon. The guards move to fire back, but Crypto moves at blinding speed, bringing them down quickly. Jor stares in shock from his cell. Crypto, he gasps. The dog barks and wags its tail. Suddenly, after a few more explosions, Lara steps through the door, her armor sliding away to reveal her smiling face. Guess the suit works, Jor tells her, and she nods. You're an idiot. Let's go home, my love, she tells him. But Cal is out in the main chamber, and he hacks into the Law Guild computers, trying to learn the truth. He is shocked to find that the science clerics know the truth about everything that is happening to the planet, and have for some time. They have begun work on spaceships, hoping to save themselves from the disaster that will befall Krypton. But Cal keeps typing, wanting to get the story to the people, and he publishes it from the Law Guild computer, letting all of Krypton know the truth about the Science League and what's happening to the planet. Later, the family returns to the farm, and Jor and Lara begin to tell Cal the truth, but he stops them. Krypton is dying, Cal finishes for them. He looks at his parents in shock and motions to the garage where he has been spying on their work. And you want to shoot me into space to save me, all alone, he says, tears beginning to form in his eyes. But Jor and Lara kneel down and hug their son. I'm not going. Not without you, Cal gasps. But Lara shakes her head. We'd never shoot you into space by yourself, she whispers. They lead him into the garage and show him the completed spaceship, much larger in size than he thought. We're going together, his parents explain. Cal looks up at the spaceship in wonder. So, where are we going? Cal whispers. The present day, Central Kansas. At the Smallville Senior Living Facility, the nurses shake their heads in sadness, talking about how Martha Kent keeps asking for her son. But they know she doesn't have any next of kin. In her room, Martha holds up a hand, looking out the window. Angel, where did you go? Fly back to me, my sweet angel boy, back to where you belong. Lois sighs as she continues her interviews. She has traveled the globe: India, Botswana, Brazil, Belarus, Mexico, Vietnam, South Africa, the United States, and Egypt, interviewing those who have seen this Superman, who he has talked to, who he has saved. She tries to explain that she is trying to help him, that she knows of his amazing powers, but also knows that he struggles to control them. Sooner or later, he's going to hurt himself or someone else. He's afraid. He needs help. He wants help. I can help him, she tries to tell them, but they won't speak to her, won't listen. They don't trust Lazarus Corp, because these people know what Lazarus really is, what they really do to these countries. I'm not asking you to trust Lazarus. I'm asking you to trust me. And I'm fully aware that I have to earn that trust, she says. In Egypt, she meets a woman who is missing an eye. Lois looks at her. Who gave you that wound? Lois asks softly. A short time later, Lois's baton falls again and again on Peacekeeper Crenshaw. Other peacekeepers stand nearby, ignoring the sound of the baton connecting against Crenshaw's face and body. I hear you like to cut people for fun, Lois growls as she steps away. Crenshaw shakes his bloody head and struggles to stand. Kill you, you stupid! He starts to gasp, but Lois hits him in the mouth and drops him. Which hand's your knifing hand? You don't show me, I'll assume it's both, she snaps. Crenshaw finally holds up his right hand. Lois reaches out and breaks the fingers. After this, we're done here, Peacekeeper. Except for one last thing. You're under arrest, she growls as she turns and walks away. But the interviews continue. Finally, the people are talking, but they aren't telling Lois what she wants to hear. They explain that she isn't following Superman for Lazarus. She is following him because she was in his presence, and you can't help but want to be around him. They all tell her that they hope Superman does lose control, that he realizes that the only way to save Earth is to kill every member of Lazarus. It is why he has come, they all agree. Later, Lois finds herself on the site of a battle with Superman in Pakistan. Lois sighs as she surveys the destruction. Superman, if you can hear me, your friends were wrong. I'm not chasing the storm. I am the storm, and you can't hide from me forever, she whispers. But her thoughts are suddenly interrupted by the buzzing of her phone. Lois taps the button and answers the call from her father. What the hell's this I hear about you refusing your security detail? General Lane says as a way of greeting his daughter. Lois sighs and explains to her father that she is trying to gain the trust of the people. And she can't do that by walking around with a squad of heavily armed peacekeepers. But General Lane explains that he's seen footage of this Superman that she is hunting. You find him, you Hiroshima that freak, and pick up your medal on the way out, General Lane tells her. But Lois shakes her head, pointing out that while his property destruction is in the trillions of dollars, he has a 0 body count. He's just some sort of, I don't know, mumbly little hippie boy, she tells her father. Back at his house, General Lane puts on his Lazarus-made prosthetic legs and steps out onto the porch. That's what they said about Charles Manson once upon a time. Take the peacekeepers with you, Agent Lane. Fear's a hell of a lot safer than trust. Every time. You remember that, Lois, General Lane orders. Lois finally gives up the argument with her father and hangs up the phone. Later, she steps off the Lazarus patrol base and into the city, ordering the Peacekeeper squad to stay behind. She moves through the marketplace, watching the people around her, passing graffiti on the walls that warns of the Omega Men coming. Lois keeps moving, aware that someone is following close behind. Meanwhile, Peacekeeper Smith has been ordered to psychological counseling with the Brainiac program. He tries to explain that he couldn't help himself. The way he tossed us around as if we were nothing, and those people, they were smiling about it, having a great laugh. So I, Smith says, but the Brainiac program interrupts him. Yes, you were in shock from the trauma you endured at the hands of this Superman, and your weapon accidentally discharged in the vicinity of unarmed civilians, Brainiac says, as if it didn't hear Smith. But the Peacekeeper shakes his head. No, I just missed! But I was trying! I was definitely trying to shoot them! He stammers, explaining that he was trained to maintain peace at all costs. Sometimes I worry I could do some really awful things in the name of... He continues, but Brainiac once again interrupts. Brainiac understands what you are saying. Your gun misfired. The weapon was defective. It will be recalled and repaired, and you will be issued a new rifle, Brainiac explains. Smith tries to argue. No, damn it! Aren't you listening to anything I'm saying? I need to talk to a real person, not just some damn algorithm, he shouts. But the system orders him to return to duty and shuts down, leaving him in the dark. No, please, Smith whispers, unaware that he is being watched by someone, that Brainiac isn't merely a program. Meanwhile, Lois ducks into an alleyway, allowing her shadow to catch up so she can draw her pistol on him. "Who are you?" she asks the young red-haired man, who puts his hands up. "It's not what you think," he tells her. Lois moves behind him quickly, her pistol never wavering. "I think you're one of the Omega Men, here to kill me," she says. "Okay, it's sort of what you think," the young man says with a shrug. But he quickly explains that he's not here to kill her, that he wants to talk with her about the truth of Lazarus and what they've been doing around the world. "Lazarus is built on lies. You're a smart woman. Haven't you wondered if you're really on the right side?" the man asks. A mask suddenly slides over his face, and the alley is hit with a bright flash. Lois throws up her hands as she is temporarily blinded and doesn't see the Omega Man whirl and draw his own weapon. But Lois is skilled, and she lashes out, punching him hard in the stomach. "If you think I haven't been trained to fight while blinded, you don't know much about me," she says, ordering him to stay down. But the man whirls with a kick, bringing Lois to the ground where they both draw their weapons. "After everything you've seen these last few weeks, the suffering around the world that's been brought by Lazarus, I'd hoped you'd be ready to accept the truth," the young man says with a sigh. But he shakes his head, allowing his mask to slide away. "I just have one thing left to say to you. Run," he whispers. Suddenly, gunfire erupts all around them. Lois turns and runs for cover from the nearby sniper. "Wait! Hold your fire! I can still reach her! I know I can!" the young man shouts to his compatriots. Lois peeks out from cover, trying to get a bead on the sniper, but her comms suddenly chime. "This is the Brainiac automated response system. Gunfire detected. Requesting assistance," the comm says, ignoring Lois's shouts that she can handle the situation. The Peacekeepers mount up at the patrol base and rush out fully armed. Peacekeeper Smith with them after being issued a new weapon. "Peace at all costs. Peace at all costs," he whispers to himself as they rush into the city. Lois draws her weapon and orders the Brainiac program to fire non-lethal rounds only. "Understood. Loading eviscerator rounds," Brainiac confirms. "Damn it, you worthless hunk of..." Lois starts to shout, but someone whirls around the corner and slices her rifle in half. "Agent Lane, call me Primus. I'm an old friend of the family," Primus says as she steps out of the shadows, armed with an energy sword. She whirls the weapon and slashes at Lois, who manages to block with her electric baton. "How's the general these days? A bit shorter than the last time we met, I'd wager," Primus gloats. But the young man, now called Alpha, is there. He aims his pistol at both women, asking that they take a minute to talk. But suddenly, red dust floats all around them, and the Omegas are knocked away. Lois looks up as Superman suddenly lands in the streets in front of them. "Superman, the Omega Men stand ready to help you in your fight against Lazarus," Primus says as she rushes to him. But Superman whirls and knocks her away. He turns to Lois and glares. "You, stop looking for me," Superman growls as his eyes glow red. But Lois shakes her head, trying to explain that she just wants to talk. But they are interrupted as the Peacekeepers arrive. They grab Lois and pull her away as others cover the Man of Steel. "Remember me, pal?" Peacekeeper Smith shouts as he raises his weapon. But Superman just looks at him for a moment. "No," he says simply, before hitting them all with a blast of super breath that freezes them in place. Lois struggles to try and reach him again, but Superman leaps into the air and flies away. "Damn it!" she shouts, whirling angrily on the frozen soldiers and shouting at them, while the nearby citizens are laughing at the Peacekeepers' plight. Nearby, Primus and Alpha are hiding in an alley. Primus is not happy. "This is your fault! You had the chance to take the shot on Lane and you failed," Primus says. But Alpha isn't listening. He's staring at a picture he took of Superman on his phone. "Are you hearing me, Olsen?" Primus asks. Alpha shakes his head. "You can call me Jimmy," Jimmy tells her, explaining that he thinks that Lois just needs more time to realize that she's on the wrong side. Later, Peacekeeper Smith is freed from the ice, but he is yelling in rage, his weapon firing. The rest of the Peacekeepers try to stop him and get him in restraints. What happened? Smith gasps as he finally comes out of his rage. But when they look up, all of the civilians are dead. Oh, not much, tough guy. You just brought a storm down on our heads is all. His superior shouts as he motions to the corpses of civilians that surround them. Krypton, 6 years ago. Cal has warned the people that the planet is dying. His act allowed the people to realize that not only is their world dying beneath their feet, but those clerics have known for some time and had created spaceships to save the elite. The police have come for the L's, but Jor and Lara are fighting back, defending their son. Run, Cal! Get to the truck! Jor shouts as he swings a hammer into the trooper that reaches for his son, Lara firing a blaster at his back. The family jumps into their hover truck and speeds away, passing through the city as riots and violence tear everything apart around them. The ground quakes beneath everyone's feet as fires erupt and Krypton tears itself apart. In a short time, the family finally arrives at the Red Crystal Cave where they have hidden their spaceship. Lara moves quickly, believing that she might be able to make some room to squeeze more people on board. But Jor shakes his head and puts a hand on her shoulder. Lara, you said so yourself. There's nothing more you can do without compromising the ship's integrity, he reminds her softly. But she turns, unfallen tears glistening in her eyes. But there are so many more people out there, Jor. More cousins and neighbors, she whispers, reminding him of the friends they have made along the way, the neighbors that have helped them. Jor nods as he wraps his arms around his wife. Lara, we can't save everyone. There just isn't time, he tells her. He pulls away and motions to the crowd that they have already gathered. This will have to be enough. Nearby, Cal is watching his parents at the entrance to the cave, but he turns away and looks back on the place that he has called home for his entire life. Krypton's sun burns in the distance, but the planet has already begun to crack. Green, radioactive fire has begun to sprout from the ground. In other circumstances, one could almost say that it was beautiful. Earth, Pakistan. Now, at the Peacemaker outpost, the red dust rolls towards the Peacemaker tanks in a terrifying wave. How the hell are we supposed to stop that? Someone shouts over the comms. Like peacemakers, open fire! The commanding officer orders. The tank cannons roar, but the rounds pass through the dust as if it were nothing. The red dust swirls underneath the tanks, launching them into the air. Inside the bunker, the other peacemakers stand with their weapons at the ready. The radio has gone silent. When suddenly, the bunker doors begin to glow red hot. The metal begins to peel back and burst, and the peacemakers are thrown to the ground. The air is heated around them as Cal steps through the door, his eyes glowing with intense heat. He reaches down and grabs the lead peacemaker, lifting him easily into the air, slamming him hard against the wall. Christopher Smith! He murdered 23 innocent people. Where is Lazarus hiding him? Where is he? Cal demands as he slams the soldier against the wall. I don't know. The peacemaker gasps as Cal's eyes begin to glow brighter. Please don't kill me. The peacemaker gasps. Cal's eyes suddenly return to normal as they widen in shock. He drops the peacemaker to the ground as he looks around at the destruction that he has caused. Suddenly, he realizes that Soul has been speaking to him. The AI has been searching for Smith, but someone known as Brainiac has tried to hack into his systems. I found him, Soul reports as Cal steps back outside and walks by the destroyed tanks. Smith? Cal asks. Brainiac. He's at a research and development facility in the Nevada desert, Soul reports, explaining that he's tapped into Brainiac's camera feeds and can see him sitting in a room, surrounded by miniature alien cities stored in bottles. Cal, there are people inside them. People who won't stop screaming, Soul says. There is a pause before he reports that Brainiac would like to speak with Cal. He is offering Smith's whereabouts as an incentive, Soul informs him. But Cal doesn't answer and leaps into the air, flying away. Krypton, the Redlands. Then, Lara is shouting for everyone to board the ship and allow it to bond with them to create their spacesuits. Cal is nearby, Krypto by his side. He stares out at his home and steps outside of the cave. Krypto barks at his young companion, but Cal wants something to remember his home. Yeah, I know, buddy. I'm just saying goodbye and wondering what the next planet will be like, Cal says softly to his friend as he reaches down and picks up a handful of dust from the Redlands. But the ground suddenly cracks beneath his feet and gives way. Lara and Jor rush to help their son, but luckily Krypto already has him, pulling the young boy away from the green fire. In the cities, the people have learned of the cleric's spacecrafts. They rush the landing pads, trying to force their way on board to save themselves. Green fire erupting around them, destroying everything. No one made it to safety that day. The fires brought everything down, at least in the cities. Back in the Redlands, the L's craft has taken off, launching away from the dying planet. On board, families huddle together as the craft shakes. Cal finds a young girl by a window and puts his arm around her as she looks out the viewport with fear in her eyes. Hey, don't be scared. This is a great ship, the best ship that's ever flown. My mom and dad built it, Cal tells her. But suddenly, a massive chunk of Krypton is launched into the air, slamming through the spaceship and tearing it in half. The survivors are thrown clear, spilling out into the open air. Cal screams as he plummets back towards the planet, but he can suddenly hear a voice. Do not be afraid, Kal-El. I am Sol, your exploratory spacesuit. I will protect you, Sol says as he forms a ship around Cal and flies up into space. Cal looks in shock as the rest of the survivors are also saved. He looks to his left and sees Krypto with his own spacecraft, his tail wagging enthusiastically. His parents suddenly appear alongside him. We're here, Cal. We're with you, son. Always. They call to him, smiles on their faces. The Sol spacecraft pushes through to leave the planet's atmosphere, but the eruptions are intense. The fires leap up into the sky, and some of the crafts begin to falter. Large chunks of Krypton chase after them, as if the planet wants no survivors for what the Kryptonians did to it. Cal's craft is suddenly shrouded by the green flames, and the planet erupts behind him in a last dying gasp. For a brief moment, there is nothing, but finally, Cal and Sol erupt from the flames. Cal cheers for a moment as he launches into the darkness of space. But when he looks around, he sees no other crafts in sight. Mom! Dad! Can anyone hear me? Anyone! He calls as his craft flies off into the vast unknown. Now, on Earth, Cal lands in a large field, the night stars twinkling overhead as he moves forward, the red dust swirling behind him like a cape. Sol reports that he's found Christopher Smith's location, but Cal shakes his head. Forget Smith. I don't want to know where he's hiding, Cal says as he looks at his hands, admitting that he's afraid of what he'll do if he comes face to face with the man. Right now, I just need to be alone. I need to be reminded, Sol. Reminded of home, Cal says as he begins to walk forward. He steps on a road and passes a sign. Smallville, Kansas. 10 miles ahead, the sign reads. Deep space, 6 years ago. The last ship of Krypton flies through the dark vastness of the stars. On board, Kal-El huddles in fear, but Sol continues to scan, reaching out with his sensors and searching for a planet to land on with his young charge. 8 days go by, and Kal is alone. 8 weeks pass, still no sign of life. 8 months. The young boy is going crazy with loneliness. 17 months, 14 days, and Kal is curled up in a ball on the deck of his small ship. Sol has become concerned. His only job is to keep Kal safe. Kal-El, you have not consumed your daily allotment of rehydrated protein slurry, the AI tells him. But Kal shakes his head. He doesn't care. Slowly, he sits up and stares out into the darkness of space. We've traveled 9 million light years, and how many habitable worlds have we found? He demands. Sol pauses for a long time before finally answering. 0, Kal. The answer is 0, the AI tells him. Kal nods. He bangs his hands on the viewpoint once. His anger rose before finally fading away. You can keep going if you want, but just let me out. You did your best. Don't worry about me. Just drop me off here, Kal whispers. He points to an approaching system. Right in that big yellow sun, he sighs. But Sol can't do that. He reminds Kal that his sole purpose is to protect Kal-El. But Kal isn't listening. He is still staring at the yellow sun. But suddenly, his body starts to feel warm, and his eyes begin to glow. Sol, why is it so hot in here all of a sudden? I'm burning up, Kal says as fear begins to creep into his voice. Turn around! Get us away from that star! Kal gasps, but a chime suddenly sounds. Wait, life-sustaining world detected, Sol suddenly says, aiming the craft for a blue world before them. But heat begins to radiate from Kal's eyes as he screams in pain, and the ship begins to break up as it enters the atmosphere. Far below, Martha and John Kent look up from their dried cornfield in Kansas. Damn, weatherman said there'd be rain, Martha sighs, but John shakes his head and clutches at their dying crop. Must be nice to have a job where you get to be wrong more times than not, he points out. Martha nods her head and looks to her husband, reminding him that the Lazarus Corporation has drones that can alter the weather over their fields, and explains that someone in town saw them. But John shakes his head. Martha, we both know such a thing ain't possible, he tells her. But he looks around and ponders whether it's true, whether Lazarus really can do the things rumors say. If it is true, what hope have we got of winning against something like that, he whispers. But suddenly, there's a roar from the sky and a great fireball slams into the field by their house. Kal steps from the flames, unharmed, but yelling as if every cell in his body is going into overload. But he can still hear Sol's voice as the red sand-shaped AI unfolds as the ship wraps around him protectively. Kal-El, I regret to inform you that my energy cells are quite depleted. I must power down for, breathe, Sol says softly before fading away. Kal looks up as 2 people approach. He holds out a hand and calls for help, but John and Martha don't understand what the young boy is saying. Finally, the flames fade and Kal collapses to the ground. Martha finally rushes forward, shocked by this strange visitor. Where did his ship go? It's like he absorbed it, she gasps. John doesn't like it though, thinking that they should call for the police. But Martha shakes her head, reminding him that minutes ago they were asking for a miracle. He was covered in flames, but now he's not even harmed. Don't you know an angel when you see one? She asks softly. And so, the Kents tried to take care of the boy. His body burned with a fever for days. He would thrash in his sleep as he recovered, his limbs so powerful that he would break the bed with one swing. One night, they found him drifting in the air, floating over the bed. Another day, red beams of heat shot from his eyes when he awoke from a nightmare, only to once more pass out again. Eventually, his body would calm. The fever would go away, and Cal slept peacefully. John found Martha sitting by the visitor's bedside. "Martha, we can't keep him here. If we do, he's gonna be the death of us. You know that, right?" John asks. But Martha shakes her head. She can sense that the boy is confused and suffering. "He's been through something awful to get here. You can tell," she whispers. She looks back at her husband, reminding him that they've lost everything. "But maybe we can still save him," she says quietly. Suddenly, Cal's eyes open and he launches from the bed in the blink of an eye. Jonathan jumps to protect Martha as Cal smashes through the bedroom wall and runs out into the world, streaking across the field fast enough to tear plants from the ground. He suddenly stops and stares at this strange world around him. He is alone, and Soul doesn't speak to him. Cal doesn't know it, but Soul has been quiet for weeks. But somehow, as Cal stared out into the fields of this new world, he could sense that he had found his new home. 2 weeks later, the Kents still can't understand Cal's speech, but he still aids them, using his incredible strength to help them around the farm. John is trying to fix a tractor enough to get it started and drive it into the barn, but Cal simply picks it up. "Heavens, don't reckon I'll ever get used to that," John whispers as he watches the boy carry the tractor over his head with one hand. Cal has become like a son to them in the short time, and though neither of them know it, both John and Martha have thanked him for saving them both. One day, Martha looks up at Cal, who smiles at her. "I know you came here searching for something. Might just be it's the same thing we was looking for too, and I just hope, well, I hope we can find it together," she tells him. Another day, Cal is working on the tractor, remembering what his mother taught him about listening to the engine, when suddenly, the symbol on his chest begins to glow. "Cal?" Soul suddenly says as Cal looks down at it in shock. "Apologies. My recharging took much longer than I anticipated. Cal, be warned. I fear this system's yellow sun may supercharge your Kryptonian cells in wildly unexpected ways," Soul warns. Cal cocks an eyebrow at his suit's words. "You don't say," he whispers. He stands up as he feels Soul's system surging as his suit forms around him. "Never mind that for now, Soul. I need you to download whatever language these people speak," Cal tells him. In moments, he is walking towards the farmhouse's front porch, where the Kents are sitting. Cal smiles at them. "Hello, my name is Kal-El. I fixed your tractor," he tells them in his first attempt at the new language. The Kents stare at him in shock for a moment. "My God," John whispers, but Martha just smiles. "Kal-El, such a lovely name. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Kal-El," she says as they both step down to shake the boy's hand and introduce themselves. "I'm Martha Kent, and this is my husband, Jonathan." "Cal, I detected some manner of remote drones operating in the skies above, with apparent weather-influencing capabilities. I took the liberty of disabling them," Soul reports. The Kents look on in shock as the drones drop out of the sky and slam into the field around them. Moments later, thunder rumbles overhead and lightning cracks. "Hello, Kents," Cal says softly as rain begins to fall down all around them. But the Kents don't know that someone from Lazarus has come to investigate the missing drones and reported him for terrorist activity and immigration violation. The rain fell for 3 days, and though this brought happiness to the Kent farm, it was not to last. The 4th day saw the arrival of the Peacekeeper unit, Tanks and helicopters churned up the mud as the squadron of peacekeepers step up to forcibly pull Cal from the Kent's home. Martha tries to reason with them, and Jonathan steps up to defend his wife. But one of the soldiers moves in and punches him across the jaw, knocking him to the ground. The boy's got no ID and no work permit. We're taking him in for processing. The soldiers shout as two of the soldiers are struggling to put Cal in the back of the truck. "Little fella's stronger than he looks!" One of them grunts as they slam Cal's head into the truck. "Cal, I cannot allow you to be taken by these men," Soul suddenly says, lashing out with his abilities to knock the soldiers aside. Cal looks in fear and surprise, unsure why the peacekeepers are attacking him. "Talk to them. Tell them who we are. Tell them about Krypton," Cal says to Soul as he shoves one of the tanks away with ease. "We do not belong here. My mission is to protect you," Soul tells him. Cal moves to help the Kents, but they both shake their heads. "Son, please, go," John and Martha whisper. Tears fill Cal's eyes as he realizes he's going to lose them. But he suddenly leaps up into the air and flies away. He would stay on the move, going from town to town, seeing this new world, and slowly realizing that he might not be able to save it, that it might end, just like Krypton. Present day. Agent Lois Lane has tracked Superman's movements. She arrives at the Smallville Senior Living Facility and flashes her badge. "I'm looking for Martha Kent. Is she a resident here?" "You might say, I'm a friend of the family," she tells the receptionist. Meanwhile, at a Lazarus Corp research center in the Nevada desert, someone else is tracking Agent Lane's movements. Brainiac smiles as he watches the camera feed. Agent Lane is quite the investigator. She's barely required any coaxing on my part. Just a nudge, really. Brainiac says to his benefactor over the other feed, the one that shows him Lazarus headquarters. "You deliver what you have promised me, and you ensure your place in the world that is coming," the leader of Lazarus says as he steps from the pool. His followers step forward with robes and a towel as the magic liquid falls away. The androids raise their hands in praise as Ra's al Ghul stands before them. "Salvation is close at hand for billions upon billions, once the Superman kneels at the feet of his holy father, Ra's al Ghul," the immortal shouts. The team of Omega Men drop into the secret facility somewhere in the Nevada desert. They drop down into the shadows, readying their weapons as they synchronize their cortexes with their combat suits. Weapons up, they move through the shadows, shifting past strange technology and purple mist that clings to the floor. No signs of life. Facility appears deserted. The kind of power this place pulls from the grid. They must be hiding something here. Something big. But if it's the server cluster that runs the Brainiac algorithm, there's no way Lazarus would leave this place unguarded, so stay alert. The team leader thinks to the others as they shift forward. But suddenly, there is a burst of energy and one of the agents falls to the ground, struggling in pain as the skin seems to be peeled from his body. "What the hell was that? What just happened to Call?" one of the agents thinks as they take cover, but a new voice in their head answers. "Why, I shrank his skin, of course," the voice tells them. The team leader raises his weapon, prepared to fire. He glances back at his other agents, but they're already falling to the ground. One starts crying out that they can't feel their muscles anymore, while the other's bones have shrank in his body and he is vomiting them up in a pool of viscera. The team leader turns and runs, firing blindly into the shadows. "Omega Strike Force to base! Immediate evac needed! Primus, do you copy?" The team leader shouts, but his hand suddenly enlarges and the rifle falls to the ground. He topples to the ground from the weight. Shh, now, clear your thoughts. Relax that luscious brain of yours. I'll take it from here. The voice thinks as Brainiac steps from the shadows, his body held together by machines, and the team leader lets out a scream of fear and pain. Later, the team leader is held together by machines as Brainiac picks at his body, studying his biology. The body shifts, and the man struggles to open his mouth, his brain suspended in a jar nearby. I wouldn't advise wiggling in your condition. I tend to tinker when I'm feeling anxious, Brainiac says as he steps forward. He glances back at his monitors and glares at the images of the so-called Superman. He can't work it out, can't figure out where he comes from, how he is able to do what he can. Brainiac roars in anger and frustration and grabs one of the nearby shrunken cities, shaking the glass and demanding the scientists inside to give him the answers he desires. Tell me who he is. Who is Superman? Brainiac bellows, but the tiny scientists don't know.
We know nothing, oh mighty Brainiac! Please, please don't!
They shout, but Brainiac whirls and throws the glass onto the ground. He steps on the city with an angry roar. Maggots! Morons! He yells as he begins squashing the beings as if they were bugs. Brainiac breathes deeply and gathers himself before turning back to the shattered tactical agent. My apologies. I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm afraid I can lose my mind a bit when I'm angry, Brainiac says as he reaches up and pokes at his exposed brain tissue, explaining that he's tried to cut free the parts of his brain that lead to anger, but has been unsuccessful so far. He turns back to the surgical table and sits on the ground, admitting that having someone to talk to might help him work through the problem. Brainiac closes his eyes and thinks back to the past. Many years earlier, Brainiac first opened his eyes. He stepped from his pod and looked at another Brainiac that stood before him. You are Brainiac 419,732. You serve the Collective. What is the Collective? Brainiac asks. But the older man waves a hand of dismissal and explains that he is not allowed to seek knowledge beyond his station. He says as he hands Brainiac a shovel. He motions to a furnace and a nearby pile of dead Brainiacs, explaining that Brainiac 419,732's job is to shovel the refuse into the liquidator. Begin shoveling, 419,732. You are already behind schedule, the older Brainiac states before walking out of the room. And so, Brainiac began, shoveling the dead bodies into the liquidator. The bodies never ended. The ceiling would open and a chute would deposit more. It was on day 2844 that Brainiac discovered that someone wasn't dead. A murderous Brainiac tore free of the pile, trying to drive a knife into Brainiac's head. Wait, I serve the Collective. What is your function? I am Brainiac 8,238,759. I stab. I kill. The murderer declares as he prepares to stab again. But Brainiac manages to push him off and grabs his fallen shovel, slamming it hard into the murderer's head and cutting it off. I am Brainiac 419,732. I shovel, he states simply before throwing the body into the liquidator. Day 13,638. Brainiac continues to shovel. His body is ravaged, cuts and broken limbs expose his blood and brains, but he continues onward. Day 49,901. Brainiac stands ready, but the room is empty. He rests easily on his shovel, but the ceiling does not open. No more refuse is brought into the room. Finally, he walks to the door, the one that the older Brainiac walked out of all those years ago. Hello? Is anyone there? There hasn't been any refuse in a long while. Should I? He begins to call, but there's no answer. Finally, he wedges his shovel into the door and pries it open, revealing an empty corridor. Brainiac moves forward, passing strange technology and small cities trapped in bottles. More Brainiac bodies stored in pods. Finally, Brainiac arrives on the bridge, where he finds the older Brainiac dead. Oh my, are you Brainiac 1? He whispers, but there is no answer. He walks forward to see the lifeless Brainiac slumped in the chair. No, you are more refuse, Brainiac says as he looks up out of the windows and stares at the stars as they pass by. He smiles slowly. I am Brainiac? I am Brainiac! He shouts with joy. That was the day that he was promoted to level 100 Effector, Brainiac 1. The one where he allowed himself the knowledge of the other Brainiacs. And Brainiac admits that he wondered what else was out in the universe, beyond the stars. In the present, Brainiac stands over the Omega agent. I've sometimes paused to consider the possibility that it would have been better for everyone, me included, if I'd stayed in that room with the shovel. But where would the fun in that be? Brainiac tells the man. He leans over him, thanking him for helping him work through his anger. Contact the Brainiac Collective. Brainiac orders his computer as he turns away. The screens switch and light up, revealing the faces of other Brainiacs around the universe. Brainiac uploads the information that he has gathered and requests any and all possible leads related to Superman's identity and/or planet of origin. The other Brainiacs study his reports, but are shocked by what they see, calling the reports idiocy and that no species has the abilities described. One by one, they sign off, until one speaks up. Krypton, a planet in the Rao sector. Your dust sample matches Krypton's thermal signature, the female Brainiac states, informing Brainiac 419,732 that the world was destroyed and there were no survivors. But this Brainiac did recently visit the former site of Krypton, where I retrieved samples of its remains. They display a rather virulent range of radioactivity, now transmitting the sample's elemental composition, the female Brainiac says. She begins to inquire about the identity of the Brainiac that called this meeting, but Brainiac ends the transmission. Brainiac turns back to his machines as they begin to synthesize a piece of Krypton that matches the specifications sent by the other Brainiac. And he smiles as a plan begins to form. I have work to do, he whispers to himself. Later, he stands before a table where his machines are working on Peacemaker Smith. He is an alien, not even of this world. Tell me, Peacemaker Smith, how does that make you feel? Brainiac asks. But Smith merely screams in pain as the machines continue to work. He doesn't understand, questioning why he is being punished. Just kill me already, he begs. But Brainiac steps from the shadows and smiles. Quite the contrary, Peacemaker. Director Al Ghul was very impressed with your work in the field. You're being trusted with a very special deployment to what is soon to be the most dangerous war zone on the planet. A place called Kansas. Brainiac whispers to him. He turns away and stares at the war suit that he has developed and smiles. Ra's al Ghul stands in his office in the Lazarus Corp global headquarters as an assassin from the Omega Men charges at him. "Death to the oppressors!" The Omega Man screams as he raises his energy knife, but Ra's just blocks it and catches the blade in his forearm.
Director Al Ghul, they're ready for you now on the earnings call.
His assistant, Ubu, calls over the comms line. "Patch me through, Ubu. We mustn't keep the investors waiting," Ra's says as he yanks the blade away from the Omega Man and turns to smash him in the face before grabbing him by the throat and lifting him into the air. "Ladies and gentlemen, you know the year's numbers, but here is something you haven't heard," Ra's says as he lifts the assassin into the air, snapping his neck with ease. "That is the sound of an assassin, sent by those who would dismantle everything we've built. I thought you might like to listen as I kill him," Ra's says as he drops the dead body to the floor, smiling at the sounds of cheering coming from the other end of the line. He pulls the energy blade out of his arm as he turns to meet the other assassins, still speaking calmly to the shareholders. "He's just a man! Kill him and we save the planet!" The other assassins shout. Ra's calmly steps forward and lashes out, punching one of the killers into a nearby wall, while at the same time speaking about how he founded Lazarus Corp almost 200 years ago and made it his mission to make the world a better place. "I never imagined I might live long enough to fulfill my company's ultimate goal of resurrecting the world," Ra's states as he kicks the assassin in the chest and sends him through a nearby door, landing in a Lazarus pit. "Activate Lazarus Pit. Maximum power," Ra's orders the computer. The assassin begins to scream as purple liquid begins pouring from the ceiling. Ra's nods and turns away, reaching down and retrieving an old sword that had fallen from the wall. He glances in the reflection of the blade, watching as the other assassin rushes him from behind. But Ra's sidesteps and avoids another blow. He whirls quickly as he takes the sword in two hands and slashes the Omega Man across the chest. "Eventually, I saw the world for what it was, a maggot-riddled carcass. It would fall to me alone to bring this ravaged, overpopulated planet back to life," Ra's tells the shareholders as he whirls around again and severs the man's head from his body with one blow. Ra's sighs and looks around the destruction of his office. He turns and walks back to the Lazarus Pit, staring down at the baby the first assassin has been reverted to. The day of resurrection is close at hand. Soon, Lazarus shall rise from his tomb like a newborn babe, Ra's says as he reaches down and picks up the child. "A lifetime ago, the name Ra's al Ghul struck fear into the hearts of the masses. The demon's head, they called me," he says as he walks back through the office to the balcony that overlooks the city. Holding the child out, he stares into his eyes. "But like Lazarus, I have been reborn. I am a god with the power to heal the lame, to restore the old, to save the planet from the billions of leeches who would bleed it dry. You may call me the God's Head now. My only regret is that I have no son through which to do this," Ra's tells them as he releases the child, allowing it to plummet towards the streets of Metropolis below. "Not yet, I don't." He turns away from the balcony without a second thought. Until next quarter, my dear friends of the League of Shareholders. Lazarus means salvation. Lazarus means sustainability and the power to sacrifice. Lazarus means hope, Roz tells the shareholders as he finishes the meeting. Meanwhile, in Smallville, Kansas, Cal stands in the hospital room of Martha Kent. He smiles down at the old woman, telling her of his travels, telling her of how he found an island in the Arctic Ocean that you can look up into the stars and feel like you were the only person in the world. Just like the tall grass prairie, like the Flint Hills down the road, like home, Cal whispers. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a handful of seashells, placing them gently on the nightstand. I brought you seashells from all 5 oceans. You always said you wished you could see the ocean, Cal whispers. But Martha begins to stir. Her eyes are cloudy with confusion.
Who are you? Jonathan!
Martha begins to yell, struggling against her blankets. Cal tries to calm her, tries to make her remember him. It's okay. It's Cal, remember? But Martha is confused, lost in her own mind.
Jonathan! There's someone in my room! Help!
Martha cries, and Cal has no choice but to fly out the window. Shortly, he is walking down Smallville Main Street when he finally stops. You people have no shame, he says to the shadows on his left. Jimmy Olsen steps out with his hands raised. Are you kidding? I've got more than I know what to do with. I'm here with the Omega Men. I've been sent, Jimmy begins to say. But Cal cuts him off as he turns to his right. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, the answer will always be no. That goes for both of you, he says as Lois Lane steps out of the shadows on the opposite side of the street. Lois has her hands open, showing that she's not armed. She walks forward slowly, trying to convince Cal that she isn't there for Lazarus. Just as me, Lois Lane, she says as she holds her hand out in a greeting. But Jimmy is suddenly there, pushing her away, pointing out that Lazarus is probably tracking her position as they speak. But Lois pushes him back, pointing out that the Omega Men are just as bad, and their boss lady put her father in a wheelchair. And your boss just turned a blind eye to 23 dead bodies in... Wait, where'd he go? Jimmy says as he realizes that Cal is no longer with them. Lois looks around, calling out into the night. She's studied Cal's history in Smallville, knows that he keeps returning there, saving people. I know why you keep coming back here. The Kent family farm. By all accounts, they were lovely people. Lazarus took that from you. Since then, you've been searching for a place to belong. I think you're looking for someone to trust. And I think that just maybe, she calls out. But there's no answer. Superman? Are you even still there? She finally says. But Jimmy motions to the closed-down Main Street around them, shouting that Superman came back to fight for what's left of Smallville, to defeat the Lazarus Corporation, to take back the land for the people. But suddenly, the streets around them are full of red dust, and Superman appears before them, anger flashing across his face. Peacemaker Smith! I'm here because of him and the innocent people that he murdered in Pakistan. I came here in hopes of stopping myself from killing him, Cal continues. But suddenly, there is a gunshot. Cal stares down in shock at the hole in his chest. Blood begins to seep out alongside a strange green gas. Lois and Jimmy both draw their weapons as Cal collapses to the ground. Do you see a sniper? Who the hell's firing? Lois shouts. But Jimmy motions to the peacemakers descending from the helicopters around them. Are you kidding me? Who do you think? he snaps back at her. Lois moves to help Superman up, but Jimmy whirls and aims his pistol at her. "You're not touching him," he shouts. Lois shakes her head and lowers her weapon. "Look, you and I, we're from opposite ends of the spectrum. We don't agree on anything and never will, except for this. If we stand here arguing while this miracle dies at our feet, we will never live long enough to stop regretting the greatest failure of our lives," Lois tells him. Jimmy stares at her for a moment before lowering his own weapon. "Help me get him out of here," she says. Meanwhile, the Peacemakers have begun to spread through the streets, led by Peacemaker Smith. "All Peacemakers, secure the perimeter! Waste whoever's helping him!" Smith says as he begins to move through the streets. Meanwhile, Lois, Jimmy, and Cal have taken shelter inside an abandoned bookstore. Lois is checking him and realizes that the bullet is still inside his chest. "I thought he was supposed to be bulletproof," Jimmy whispers. "Cal, I am having great difficulty extracting the projectile. Its composition appears to be... No, that is impossible," Soul says as he examines Cal's body. "Don't care what it is. Just get it out, Soul," Cal whispers. He begins to scream in pain as Soul works to extract the bullet, but the wall suddenly crumbles inward. "There you are!" Smith bellows as he reaches down and grabs hold of Cal, lifting him into the air and throwing him through another wall and back out into the streets. Smith stomps forward, slamming his fists into Cal again and again. But Cal fights back and quickly gets to his feet, lashing out and punching him in the chest, staggering him. Peacemaker Smith's abilities appear to be upgraded, and the solar energy in your cells is rapidly depleted by the bullet's radiation. Kal-El, this fight could kill you, Soul warns. But Cal ignores him and hits Smith in the chest again. But the Peacemaker smiles. Cal's blows are getting weaker. "Brainiac showed me everything. I serve the will of God," Smith bellows as he hits Cal in the chest again, bringing him to his knees. Cal tries to use his ice breath, but Peacemaker Smith just punches him in the face. "Kal-El, the bullet is of Kryptonian origin. It is the planet's irradiated remains," Soul warns. Smith stands ready to continue the fight, but looks up as both Lois and Jimmy approach him with their weapons drawn. "Get off him, Smith," Lois orders. Smith just smiles at them as the rest of the Peacemakers arrive, weapons trained on the traitor and the terrorist. "Guns down, both of you," the Peacemakers order. But suddenly, the streets are filled with the residents of Smallville. "All y'all put your damn guns down and march yourselves out of Smallville. This is still our town," the townsfolk shout. Smith smiles and turns to those gathered, prepared to murder everyone. Ha! God bless America! But suddenly, a glowing fist punches him across the face. "Smith!" Superman bellows as he beats the Peacemaker into the ground. Smith looks up to see Superman surrounded by red dust, now clad in more powerful armor. "You should have stayed the hell away from Kansas," Superman growls as the red dust swirls around them, slashing at the Peacemakers, shredding their weapons and armor. Superman moves blindingly fast, his fists slamming into Smith again and again. "I just punched you 1,000 times in 30 seconds. Stay down, Smith," Superman orders. But Smith doesn't listen. "All that power, and you're still afraid of your own rage. Look at you. You've got my bullet in you, killing your alien ass, and you're still holding back," Smith says with a smile. But Superman steps forward, raising his glowing fist. "Not anymore," he growls. But Smith's smile widens. He struggles to his feet and draws his pistol. It glows with another strange green bullet. Ha! Too late, pal, he says as he aims and fires. The round hits Cal's armor, knocking him back. Smith fires again, and another round rips into the alien, knocking him to the ground. Cal tries to speak to Soul, but the system is down. His friend is silent. Ra's al Ghul. That's God's secret name. Brainiac told me, Smith says as he stands over Cal. He raises his weapon and aims it at Cal's head. God says, all we gotta do to save the world is murder a whole bunch of people. Smith tells him with a smile. His finger begins to tighten on the trigger. But suddenly, energy rips through his body. You forget yourself, Peacemaker. You belong to Brainiac, and I am always watching. The Superman is not to be killed. Brainiac says into Smith's mind before the Peacemaker collapses to the ground and passes out. Superman is still wounded, blood seeping from the gunshots as he struggles to his feet. Get me out of here, he gasps. We're trying. We just don't know what to, Lois starts to say. No, you, Superman says, pointing at Jimmy. Lois turns to Jimmy. You said you had a way to save him. Do it, Lois tells him. Jimmy doesn't hesitate. This is Agent Alpha. I need a boom, Jimmy says into his comms. Suddenly, there is a loud boom, and a portal opens in the street. Energy and light fill Smallville as the Omega Men pour out, opening fire on the advancing Peacemakers. Lois begins to help Superman through the portal, but the Omega Men Primus steps forward and places an energy sword to her throat. Not you, Lane, she says. The Omega Men suddenly disappear into the portal, leaving Lois behind. The Peacemakers surround her, aiming their weapons at her. Lois doesn't fight. She puts her hands in the air in defeat. What the hell have I done? She whispers to herself. Cal writhes in pain, blood seeping from his wounds as the Omega Men try to hold him down. They are in the medical bay of a captured Lazarus oil rig that the Omega Men use as a base of operations. Multiple entry wounds. Pulse is there. BP's dropping. Anesthesia has no effect. He's feeling everything we're doing. The medic shouts as the doctor continues to reach in, trying to find the kryptonite bullet. I've got it! Retrieving it now! The doctor shouts. Cal screams in pain, the force of which shakes the room around them, destroying their equipment. But he suddenly sags as the kryptonite bullet is pulled free from his chest. 1 down, 2 to go, the doctor says as he holds the first bullet high in triumph. Primus staggers back to her feet, explaining that the other rounds are wedged between his ribs and near his lungs, and asks where the ultrasound is. The doctor motions to the destroyed equipment around them as he looks up at her. Every piece of equipment in this room was just blown to smithereens. We can't see anything in there, he points out. Cal sits up and holds out his hand, gritting his teeth against the pain. His eyes begin to glow with blue energy. I can. Give me the clamps. I'll do it myself, he gasps. Cal takes the medical equipment and uses his vision to see inside his own body. He lets out another scream of pain as he pulls out the second bullet. Once again, he collapses against the table. Don't think I can do that again. Soul, Cal gasps, but Soul's voice is far away, apologizing as he continues to reboot. But Primus is leaning over him now. It's all right, Superman. You're not alone, she says to him. She turns back to her soldiers and orders them to bring the box. Cal struggles to remain conscious. The kryptonite in his chest is trying to kill him, but Primus reaches out and slides away her helmet, revealing her face. Hey, stay with me. We have something here that can help you. Though, it may feel strange. Just keep your eyes on me, alright? Omega will provide. She tells him as the doctor returns, now holding a strange alien box. Triggering the machine! Stand back! He tells those gathered around. Cal's eyes widen in surprise, and he tries to tell them to wait, but it is too late. The box begins to hover over him. Energy erupts outwards as it pings again and again, the sound echoing around the room. The energy wraps around him, and Cal begins to scream again. Meanwhile, Lois Lane sits in a Lazarus cell at the Lazarus Corp processing center. The door opens and a massive man walks in. Agent Lois Lane, you will answer my questions as if your life depended on it, the man tells her. Who am I? And why am I here? He asks. Lois looks at him for a moment. She knows who he is. You're Ra's al Ghul, reclusive founder and CEO of Lazarus Corp, she says, explaining that he is there to impress her with his appearance, and that despite her betrayal of Lazarus, she is not fired and will not be executed, that she is still a soldier of Lazarus and will do as she is told, and there's still work to be done. Raz smiles at her. Brilliant! I could not have said it better myself. Now let us, he begins to say, but Lois cuts him off, explaining that Raz will also threaten to take away her father's Lazarus prosthetic legs with the flip of a switch. I almost feel sorry for you. You have no idea how the world has changed, because you haven't met him yet. Once Superman's standing in front of you, you'll realize just how small you've become, Lois tells him. Raz's smile falls away, and he leans forward. I fear I must correct you on one minor detail. Disappoint me again, child, and I will not take away your father's legs with a flip of the switch. I will put the pathetic cripple out of his misery with mine own hands, Raz tells her. Lois lunges at him with a hidden knife and holds it to his throat. But Raz does not care. Do it! Open my throat, and I promise you, I will rise again on the morrow. Can you say the same? He says. Lois lowers the blade, and Raz finally nods and turns away. Lazarus means life, Agent Lane. You hold your father's in your hands. Remember your love for him as you fulfill your duty. And bring me my son, Raz tells her as he stalks out of the cell. Weeks later, at a Lazarus Corp peacemaking embassy in Pakistan, the peacemakers turn in shock as a boom tube opens. Omega men pour out, led by Primus. Death to the techno-fascists! Primus shouts as she kicks a peacemaker in the head and raises her sword. She prepares for the killing blow, but the Omega men are suddenly held in place by red dust as Superman steps through the portal. Primus! You saved my life and I'm grateful, but if you insist on using deadly force, you'll wish you'd left me to die, Cal tells her. Primus lowers her weapon and nods. Never, Superman, never, she says before turning to the others and ordering them to follow Superman's lead. Cal moves quickly, using his super speed to move through the embassy and search for the Pakistani protesters that the peacemakers were holding hostage. The Omega men watch as peacemakers are thrown free of the building as Superman moves through it. Cal stops on the roof and orders the peacemakers to get out of their tanks before burning them all with his heat vision. You must be more careful, Kal-El. If you exert yourself, you could reopen your wounds, Sol reminds him. Cal nods. Soul, I think we've been here long enough to say that there's no such thing as being careful on this planet. And at this point, all I am is wounds. Cal reminds his friend with a sigh. Suddenly, twin peace mechs reach through the fire and grab hold of Cal, threatening to rip him apart. But Soul charges up and activates a solar flare mode, unleashing a solar flare, burning away the mechs as Cal screams in pain. Earlier, at the Omega Men base, he sat with Jimmy Olsen. "What do you know of that box?" Cal asks him. Jimmy shrugs, explaining that there are various stories about how it came from space or was found buried deep beneath the Earth and had been there for millions of years. All Primus says is that it comes from God, Jimmy tells him. Cal nods and explains that it spoke to him, not with a voice, but with fire, burned its words into his mind. "It's called a father box. I saw a world erupting with flames, fire pits the size of oceans, and slums that went on forever," Cal tells his friend as he stares out at the ocean. "You saw what will happen if we don't stop Lazarus Corp. Primus says their boss is a certified maniac," Jimmy tells him. Jimmy explains that he joined the Omega Men because he wanted to help save the world, that he couldn't just sit idly by and watch as Lazarus Corp destroyed everything. Plus all the craziness that's supposedly happening in Area 41, the government's Project Olympus, and the world's richest psychopath. Some guy they call the Joker, Jimmy says. But their conversation is interrupted as Primus comes over, explaining that Jimmy will have one more chance to rise above the rank of Alpha, as he will be joining them on their assault on the embassy, as the Peacemakers have captured a group of protesters. Back in the present, Cal rips apart the Peace Mechs and stands in the destruction as Peacemakers surround him, aiming their guns at him. Soul is still speaking. "Father Box is extremely dangerous, Kal-El," he tells him. Cal looks at the Peacemakers around him. "Soul, I've never heard you like this. You sound almost frightened," he tells his friend as he begins to charge up another solar flare. "I am a vestige of the Kryptonium Luminarium, imbued with limited sentience by Lara L. I am not capable of such emotion. It is you who should be frightened, Kal-El, of the Father Box, and this corrupt world, and the sort of man it may be turning you into," Soul tells him as Cal unleashes his anger with the solar flare on all those who surround him. "Soul, you saved my life, and you're all I have left of Krypton, but I'm tired of people telling me who I am. So do me a favor and shut the hell up!" Cal finally snaps in anger. "As you wish, Kal-El." Disabling voice mode, Soul finally says. The Omega Men catch up to Cal and begin to spread out and search for the prisoners. But Cal uses his supervision to find them quickly. He punches through a nearby wall, revealing that the Peacemakers strung the protesters up and hung them from the ceiling. More Peacemakers begin to flood into the chamber. Primus lifts her sword up again, ignoring Superman's warnings as she turns on the villains. "Butchers! Butchers and cowards!" she bellows as she swings the blade, cutting through them. She raises a weapon and takes aim at the nearest Peacemaker. "Superman, do something!" Jimmy shouts as Primus squeezes the trigger. Later, the Omega Men return to the base with a boom. Cal pauses quietly for a moment and looks down at his hand. He caught the bullet. "Soul, I hesitated. I almost didn't." "Soul?" he says quietly, to no response. Primus stands before him. "Now do you see the truth?" she asks, explaining that Lazarus will exterminate anyone who gets in their way, that they will destroy this planet, that Superman has the power to stop them, to fight alongside the Omega Men and wipe Lazarus out. You were sent here for a reason, Superman. I see the anger inside you, begging to come out. Stop holding back the volcano, she begs him. But Cal clutches at his head and shakes it slowly. No, stop talking, please, he whispers, feeling the rage building up within him. Primus wants Superman to help her wipe out Lazarus and kill Ra's al Ghul. One death to save billions, she tells him. But the conversation is interrupted by another Omega Man, telling them that in all the chaos they didn't realize that they left a man behind. What are you talking about? Primus asks angrily. Agent Alpha, the Omega Man tells her. We forgot about Olsen! Meanwhile, Jimmy is sitting at a table, a black bag pulled down over his head. Excuse me. I have rights, 'cause of that convention in Geneva. I'd like, one lawyer, please. Preferably one with good reviews. Jimmy calls to whoever is there. Suddenly, the bag is pulled away to reveal Lois Lane. You don't have any rights here, Omega Man, except the right to tell me everything you know about Superman, while you still can. Lois snaps at him as she leans over the table. Krypton, years ago. The Sunstones crack apart as Jor-El pushes through. I see them! They're alive! Keep digging! He shouts to the drones that float nearby. The drones fly in and continue to chisel away at the Sunstone, allowing Jor-El to enter the chamber that had trapped the lost miners. I'm Jor-El from engineering. I need medical teams down here immediately, Jor-El says over the radio as he enters the chamber. But the miners shake their heads and reach for him. We won't make it, one of them gasps. He motions behind him at the other miners. We won't make it because of them, he grunts. Jor-El doesn't understand, but as he looks up, something tears through the Sunstone, grabbing hold of one of the miners and pulling him screaming into the shadows. Was that? Jor-El begins to say, Sunstone dust beginning to fill the chamber as the ground shakes beneath them, warning them of more animals approaching. Magmoles, the miner gasps. Jor-El shakes his head. He knows about the creatures, knows that they don't come up this far to the surface, and have never attacked people. One of the miners struggles to his feet, lifting the diamond pickaxe and readying it as a weapon. Tell that to the 3 miners they dragged away screaming, he grunts. Jor-El crowds with the miners, all standing back to back in order to defend themselves. Stay close. First sign of a mole, we fight together. Bash its brains in. It's our only chance, the lead miner orders. The chamber begins to shake again as the creatures draw close, but they don't come one at a time. They push through the Sunstone and launch their attack. Jor-El's eyes widen in horror at the rabid nature of the normally docile creatures. Something must have pushed them to the surface, starved them. Something within the planet's core must have affected them. But none of that matters. The only thing Jor-El can think of is getting home to Lara and Cal. Drone! Lava gun! Jor-El orders. The drone drops the weapon into Jor-El's hands before opening up with its own defenses. Jor-El grimly pulls the trigger and starts firing as the magmoles surround them. Present day Greenland. Lazarus Corp's research facility. Snow swirls around the landscape as the Lazarus Corp's Defense Air Force flies overhead, scanning for signs of the approaching Superman. Suddenly, red dust begins to swirl from the clouds, taking out the jet fighters one by one. Fire erupts in the sky as the pilots parachute safely down to the frozen earth below. At the facility, the Peacemakers open fire with an anti-aircraft barrage, firing bursts of lasers into the red clouds as they approach. Inside, Lois Lane is dragging Jimmy Olsen towards the exit. "Miss Lane, we have to do something. We've got to help," Jimmy begins to whisper, but Lois shoves him forward. "Shut the hell up, or we're both dead, you idiot," she snarls. Above in his office, Ra's al Ghul watches as the laser blasts erupt in the clouds overhead. He smiles. "At last, the day I meet my son," he whispers. He turns back to Brainiac and motions to the frozen landscape around them. "You couldn't have chosen a less godforsaken location for such a momentous day?" he questions. Brainiac bows his head and explains that his studies have indicated that Superman gains his power from the yellow sun. Here, the sun won't rise for another 37 days. The longer he fights, the more Superman will exhaust his solar reserves, Brainiac explains. Suddenly, the door opens behind him to reveal the augmented Peacemaker Smith. "Captain Smith, ready for another shot at the Superman?" Ra's asks. The soldier stands at attention and nods his head. "Yes, sir, Mr. Al Ghul, sir," he says. "But, if I may speak freely, sir, do I have permission to win this time?" Ra's turns and holds out a glowing green kryptonite bullet. "Your orders are to make God proud," Ra's tells him. Meanwhile, the red cloud has reached the anti-aircraft turrets and ripped them apart. Ra's steps outside with Brainiac and Smith. "Tell me he's killing them," he asks Brainiac. "I'm afraid that the Peacemaker's vitals are still quite active. Superman is merely stranding them miles away," Brainiac tells him. Ra's sighs in disappointment at Superman's continued non-lethal fighting. Below them, a boom tube suddenly opens in the courtyard, depositing Primus and her Omega Men into the facility. "Omega Men, find Agent Alpha and kill anyone who gets in your way," Primus shouts as she raises her energy sword. Lois pushes Jimmy outside as the fighting begins all around them. "That was a boom tube. The Omega Men are here, Miss Lane. Primus can get us out of here," Jimmy whispers. But Lois shoves him into the snow and pushes her pistol against his head. "I am not gonna tell you again, Olsen. Next time you open your damn mouth, I'm sending your teeth down your throat," she hisses. Smith walks past them, smiling down at Lane. "Nice to see you finally joining the team, sweetheart. Now watch what I do to your Kansas pretty boy," he tells Lois. His jetpack activates and he leaps into the sky, barreling towards the red clouds as he readies his pistol. He disappears into the cloud cover, prepared to take on Superman. 4 seconds later, there is a burst of light, and suddenly, Smith comes flying back out and slams into the ground hard. He gasps for air, his metallic body shattered and broken. The clouds finally part as Cal moves forward, floating down gently as the red dust swirls around him. Smith reaches a shaky hand for his fallen pistol and takes aim. "You bastard! Not done with you yet," he gasps. But Superman doesn't move. He thinks back to the day when his father returned and told him about the Magmals, about how he had to be cruel and kill them so that he could survive. Cal was shocked, but Jor-El explained that sometimes a man had to kill, but only if it was to protect himself and those he loves. Superman stares at Smith, and suddenly, Primus is there. "What the hell are you waiting for? For Smith to put another bullet in you? He's a murderer, a threat to everything you fight for. Finish him already," she shouts. But she grows impatient and finally shakes her head and raises her sword. To hell with you! I'll do it myself! She growls. Superman's eyes suddenly glow and the sword melts in her hands. She whirls on the Man of Steel. You save him? After everything he's done? You're no Superman. You're nothing but a soft little coward, she shouts. But suddenly, the Omega Men and Peacekeepers are all around them. Roz approaches with Lois and Jimmy. How dare you speak that way, woman? To the son of the demon. Roz snaps at her. Son? Lois says in shock as she looks at Roz. Not by blood, of course. The blood is what comes now. He stops at Smith, reaching down and taking the pistol from his hands. Please, I never got to fire my bullet. Smith gasps, but Roz shakes his head in disgust. He raises the pistol and takes aim, and fires at Smith's face. But Superman moves at blinding speed, putting his hand in the way of the bullet. No! He shouts as the bullet rips into his flesh. Roz looks at him, explaining that he understands that Kal is angry at the state of the world. But together, they can fix it. Remake it in their image. Isn't that what you want, son? Roz asks. Superman glares at him. I am not your son, he gasps with anger. Roz nods his head. Not yet, but you will be, he says simply. Suddenly, Kal's eyes widen in shock as something pierces him from behind. He glances over his shoulder as Primus pulls the kryptonite blade from his flesh. Lois moves to help, but Primus whirls and kicks her in the head, knocking her out. The rest of the Omega Men begin to fall as Primus moves among them, her blades whirling and slashing. Superman falls to his knees in shock and pain. He looks up at the sound of the pinging father box. Roz stares down at him, his arm gently placed on Primus's shoulder as she holds the father box. You are not yet worthy of being called a child of Al Ghul, but we will teach you, your sister and I. Won't we, Talia? Roz asks. Talia Al Ghul smiles down at Kal. Indeed we will, Father. All hail the Omega! Kal-El's eyes widen in terror as he looks up and sees his parents dangling from energy beams above the Kryptonian Council chamber. The members of the Science League look down at them with eyes devoid of emotion. For the crime of ambition, we find the Els guilty. For the crime of dissent, we find the Els guilty. For the crime of illegal use of science, guilty. The League members drone. The energy beams shock the Els with each verdict. Stop! You're killing them! Kal shouts. Finally, the League sentences the Els to hang from the skies of Kandor for 100 years. With the verdict read, the members of the Science League turn their dispassionate gaze upon Kal. Now, as for your crimes, Kal-El of the Redlands, for the misdemeanor of being an orphan, the Science League hereby sentences you to 20 years confinement in the Phantom Zone Orphanage, the League declares. The guards move to grab the young boy, but his eyes begin to glow red with anger. To hell with you! Young Kal screams as red-hot energy beams begin to pulse through the chamber, ripping through the guards and turning them to ash. Screams of pain echo through Krypton. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Brainiac leans over the body of Kal-El with a sadistic grin. Kal is trapped, weakened by the synthesized kryptonite that Brainiac has created, while his machine places the young man in simulated worlds of trauma. "Tell me you're making progress," Ra's al Ghul demands as he enters the chamber with his daughter. "Oh, indeed. Superman has just mentally murdered the entire ruling class of his home planet for the 575th time in the last 6 hours. Once we reach 3,000, I believe he'll be ready to move to the Earth," Brainiac explains. Ra's nods in approval and looks at the young alien, reminding Brainiac that he doesn't want a lobotomized drone like these clones he's created. "Yes, of course. The son of the demon shall arise, I assure you," Brainiac says with a bow. Talia glares at him as she steps forward, the father box held aloft in her hands. "Fail the Lord of Lazarus, and I will feed your marrow to the father box," she warns. Brainiac's eyes widen as he takes a step back. "Superman will be the wrath of the Al Ghul's made flesh, Lady Talia. All I ask is that you keep that box away from me," he pleads. The Al Ghul's leave Brainiac and his drones alone to continue their task. He turns and looks at the tank that contains the synthetic being known as Soul, before turning to check the Kryptonian meteorite restraints. One of the drones steps forward. "Brainiac 1, in regards to the Kryptonian meteorite, some of us thought kryptonite might be a more efficient name for the substance," the drone states. Brainiac whirls and glares at the clone. "One demerit for speaking out of turn, Brainiac 9. Return your tongue to the parts department," Brainiac orders. The drone nods and moves to cut out his own tongue. Alone once more, Brainiac leans over Kal-El's restrained body. "Such a tragedy. I can see why you think you want to save these poor humans from their self-destruction. I have lived among them since 1938, so believe me when I say, once you've let yourself kill a few million of the hapless sacks of entrails, you'll see that's the sort of help these people deserve," Brainiac whispers. In his mind, Kal flies above Krypton, using his powers and soul to wipe the planet clean. Meanwhile, in their cell in the Lazarus compound, Talia lashes out and kicks Lois in the face, but Lois merely spits out a mouthful of blood. "Are you bored yet, Primus? Either make a fair fight of it, or kill us and get it over with," Lois snaps. "She, doesn't speak for the both of us," Jimmy points out. Talia smiles and draws her blade, promising that Lazarus will save the Earth, and a new world will be ushered into existence by her father. Would-be despots with God on their side. How original. You want to start a war between the rich and the poor. A war that nobody wins. Except the Al Ghuls, of course, Lois growls. Talia smiles at her, promising that Superman will lead the way into the future. Soon, that sweet little child of Smallville will turn this planet red, she says with a smile before turning and heading towards the exit. "That will never happen. You have no idea how strong he is," Lois promises. But Talia glances over her shoulder. "Believe me, I know him better than you ever will. The father box tells me everything. Superman has a breaking point, and once he's reached it, his final test will be to kill you both," Talia calls. Day 5. Brainiac leans over Kal's body and demands a status report, but Kal-El breaks through his mental restraints. The machines shatter around him as he sits up, a hand moving at super speed and closing around Brainiac's throat. "Get out of my mind!" Cal demands as his grip tightens and Brainiac's eyes begin to bulge. "You cannot stop. What is happening to you, Kal-El?" "You said you killed millions," Cal whispers. Brainiac gently nods his head. "I have, on this world and many others. And when I am done, so will you." Brainiac gasps. Cal's grip tightens. "No, Brainiac. Not millions. Just you," he says as he squeezes tighter. But Cal suddenly releases him. "No. What am I doing? This is not who I am," Cal whispers as he stares at his hands. He turns his gaze upon the drones that stare up at him. "Help me. I see the way he treats you. You're prisoners here, just like me. You deserve better. You deserve freedom. Together," Cal begins to say, but he suddenly screams in pain and grabs at his head. "Shut down the program!" Brainiac demands in the real world. He is leaning over the body, unsure of why Cal can't be pushed to the next stage of his mental conditioning. "You're supposed to kill me, you moron!" he bellows in anger. Day 12. Brainiac doesn't understand. He still can't push Kal-El further. Meanwhile, his drones step forward, demanding their freedom. "Who said that? Which one of you is an ungrateful traitor? Speak up, or you'll all be labeled refuse," Brainiac demands. But the drones all begin to say that they were the ones that said it. And so, Brainiac takes a bone saw to them all. Day 14. A helicopter lands at the Greenland base, and General Lane disembarks, greeting the peacemakers who look to him as a hero. He steps through the security checkpoint and the alarms ding. "Sorry, sir, but we'll have to do a secondary security check," one of the peacemakers states as he raises his weapon. General Lane understands and takes a seat to pull off his prosthetic legs. "General, I'm not seeing an appointment on our records. Why are you here again?" the peacemaker asks. General Lane nods as he reaches for one of his prosthetic legs. "Ah, you know how the story goes, son. The things a man will do for his family," Lane says as he pulls out a submachine gun and opens fire. Minutes later, Lois and Jimmy look up in shock as their cell door is blown off its hinges and General Lane stands before them. He tosses his daughter a weapon. 14 guards on this floor, 2 exits. Southeast looks to be the least offended. "I'll take point, Lois. You cover the rear," he orders. Lois grabs hold of Jimmy and drags him towards the door. "We can't leave yet, Dad. There's someone else here," she says. Meanwhile, inside Kal-El's mind, the peacemakers are assaulting the Kents. John and Martha shout for Cal to run, but this time, he doesn't. Soul raps out as Cal reaches out with his powers, heat pulsing out of him, burning the peacemakers alive. With nothing but bodies all around him, he falls to his knees. Ra's al Ghul walks forward and places a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Bravo, Superman. I knew you could do it. You were sent here for a reason, son. To save this planet. You can't do that without blood on your hands. You see that now," Ra's states. Kal-El glares at him and moves quickly, ripping the ruler's heart from his chest and letting him fall to the ground. Talia moves to defend her father, but Soul wraps around her throat and squeezes the life from her. In the real world, Lois kicks in the door to Brainiac's lab and shoots the sadistic alien through the chest. "Get away from him, you maniac!" she snaps as she pushes the body aside. But Brainiac merely smiles at her. Ha! You're too late, Lane, he gasps. General Lane takes a position by the door, snapping off rounds to keep the peacemakers at bay. Whatever you're doing, do it fast, he shouts. Lois and Jimmy look at the equipment, unsure of how to unhook Superman from the machine. Lois turns back to her father as the gunfire suddenly stops. General Lane stumbles towards them, a blade stuck in his head. I can't feel my legs, he gasps before collapsing. Lois rushes to her father's side, firing into the doorway as Talia and the peacemakers step inside. I want them back in their cells, alive. Alive-ish is fine too, Talia orders. In his mind, Cal stands with the Kents on the remains of their farm. The kind elderly couple pull him close, explaining that for him to be safe in this world, he has to fight for it, has to kill for it. We're so proud of you. Just keep doing it, son. Get out there and kill them all, the Kents whisper. In the real world, Kal-El screams with anger as he snaps awake, destroying the machines around him. He moves fast, grabbing hold of Brainiac and squeezing his throat. But one of Brainiac's drones is still moving, dragging its half-destroyed body towards Soul's containment tank. Save him. Save Superman, the drone whispers as it tips the tank. The red dust begins to swirl around the room. Kal-El, no! What are you doing? Jimmy shouts. Soul swirls, knocking Talia and the peacemakers away. Kal-El, this is Soul. I have been reactivated. I am getting us out of here. Soul says that Kal-El's hand tightens even more around Brainiac's throat as they lift into the air, and he doesn't respond. Kal-El? Soul whispers in the complete destruction of the base. Inside the Smallville Senior Living Building, Martha Kent pulls herself out of bed and rushes to the window.
Nurse! Nurse! Please hurry! Did you see that storm that blew past? It was as red as it could be, wasn't it? That means he's back!
She calls. The nurse rushes into the room at the sound of Martha's excitement. Martha turns away from the window with a smile on her face, explaining that she needs to get ready for his return. But the clarity leaves just as suddenly as it arrived. Miss Kent, what is it you need? The nurse asks. The smile slowly falters from her face, replaced by a confused look.
What did I need for what?
She asks. The nurse tells her that she only came in because she was yelling for something.
Was I?
Martha says as she turns back to the window.
Did you see that storm that blew past? It looked almost red, didn't it? Now what was it you said you needed again?
She whispers as the thoughts leave her mind blank once more. Memories and clarity fading. Meanwhile, the red dust storm stops in a field outside of town, depositing Lois and Jimmy into the grass. What do we do? Lois whispers as she watches the red dust swirl around Superman, encasing him and closing him off from the world. What can we do? Jimmy asks. Kal-El rages within the storm, but Soul is doing what he has always done. He is saving his young charge. 5 years earlier, Kal sat on the lip of a volcano, staring down at the swirling lava below him. I won't do it, he snaps at Soul, who argues that Kal needs interaction with people, that Kryptonians, like humans, weren't designed to live in isolation. But Kal shakes his head. I'm not going anywhere near those Earth people again. There's nothing I need out there. I don't have to eat, barely sleep, don't need a roof over my head. I'll be just fine in the places where they're not, he says. Soul is quiet for a moment. I know you are hurting from what happened with the Kents, he finally says. Kal hangs his head in sadness. I don't want to talk about that, he finally whispers. But Soul reminds him once again that he was not made to live alone. I am an artificial intelligence designed by your mother. I am no substitute for true companionship, Soul reminds him, pointing out that isolation threatens to untether him from the people of his new world. Finally, Cal submits to Soul's suggestions. The AI pauses for another moment. First things first. My sensors indicate that your personal aroma has become quite pungent in recent weeks, Soul points out. Oh, for the love of... a bath? I hate this already, Cal sighs as he stands up and leaps into the lava. Weeks pass, and Cal begins to travel. Soul suggests that with Cal's abilities and intelligence, that he could assimilate himself into the upper echelons of Earth's societies. But Cal refuses. His parents were people of the Earth, farmers and mechanics. That is where he wishes to live. So he travels to the Philippines, works on the sugarcane farms beneath the sun. One day, he lifts a large bundle over his head and places it on the back of a truck. You should drink more water, an older woman says, smiling at him. Sorry, it's the mother in me. You carry more sugarcane than anyone. Without resting in the shade, without stopping for a drink, Lazarus will gladly work you to death if you let them. And the sun is happy to oblige, she tells him. Cal looks back at her. Not thirsty, and the sun feels good to me, he says softly. The woman holds out her hand and introduces herself. Cal reaches for her, but his skin burns her on contact. She screams in pain and pulls away, her hand smoking from the touch. Your hand! It burns like the sun! In heaven's name, what are you? She gasps as the others begin to gather around them. Peacemakers quickly arrive, raising their weapons at them. One of the peacemakers strikes the woman for stopping her work. Cal reaches out for the man's arm. Stop it! Can't you see she's hurt? He shouts. He pulls too hard and rips the peacemaker's arm off. Oh, Rao, I didn't mean... Cal starts to say as the peacemaker screams in pain. Others arrive and raise their weapons, but Cal suddenly disappears in a blur of red dust. Moments later, Soul deposits him on the peak of the Gungkar Punzum. I didn't mean to do that, Cal whispers as he falls to his knees. Of course you didn't, Cal, Soul says, pointing out that the young man's strength has been augmented by the yellow sun. Every day that you are here, you absorb the energy of Earth's yellow sun. You must learn to be careful around humans, Soul tells him. But anger suddenly flashes through Cal as he thinks of the horrible things that the peacemakers do in the name of Lazarus. How maybe what he did was right, and maybe he should slaughter them all, like his father once slaughtered the animals in the crystal caves of Krypton. Soul is quiet for a moment. The red dust begins to swirl before Cal and suddenly takes on the images of his parents. Humans may be primitive, with a shocking capacity for cruelty towards one another, but they are not animals. If Jor-El and Lara were here, they would tell you, just as they once stood up and told the Science League, that you do not have the right to judge and execute people, simply because you can, Soul says softly. They're not here though, are they? They're dead! Cal yells as the anger begins to take over. You don't know what you're talking about, Soul! You're not even real! Cal drops to his knees in exhaustion. You are correct. I was made to protect you and remind you who you are. This I will continue to do, Kal-El, Soul says softly. Cal slumps. The anger left him as quickly as it came. Soul, I think I'd like some time alone, he whispers. Soul begins to swirl around Cal, creating a crystal barrier, a small fortress of solitude. Of course, Cal, these have been traumatic times for you. Tomorrow, we will talk again, Soul says. Kansas, now. Cal has taken a respite within his crystal fortress, but he suddenly punches through, and the crystals fade away, the dust swirling around Cal once more. Cal, are you well? Soul asks. Cal thinks back on everything that Brainiac did to him, how he almost broke him. No, he whispers before flying up into the air. Meanwhile, in town, Lois and Jimmy are trying to buy breakfast at the local diner. The waitress behind the counter stares at them for a moment, explaining that everyone remembers them from when they first arrived with Superman. "We know what you did," the waitress whispers. Lois glances over her shoulder and notices the entire diner staring at them. "Look, we don't want any trouble," Lois says softly. But the waitress looks at them and motions to the chairs, telling them to sit down. "If you were still with Lazarus, Miss Lane, or if I believed anything they said on the news, I'd be showing you to the door myself with my 12 gauge between your ribs," she says as she pours them cups of coffee. "I know you tried to help him when he needed it most. So, for friends of Superman, breakfast is on me," she says with a smile as she puts plates of food before them. Lois glances back and sees the diners smiling, some offering to buy them lunch and dinner. Lois lets out a sigh of relief. She turns back to the waitress. "Thank you, Miss Lang," the waitress tells her, "but you can call me Lana." She shakes her hand and points out that Lazarus might not be done with their town, and that she should keep that shotgun handy. "Oh, it always is," Lana promises as she pats the weapon beneath the counter. Meanwhile, Cal lands softly outside the Kent farm. "I'm sorry, Cal. I failed to protect you," Soul tells him softly. But Cal shakes his head, pointing out that Soul has been with him from the very beginning of his journey, that he has always protected him every step of the way, aided him. "For the first time in 6 years, I can say this with certainty. You're wrong. I was never alone. Thanks to you, Soul," Cal says, apologizing for every mean thing that he had ever said to his AI companion. "You're more than just a rocket ship, or a collection of advanced crystals, and the world's most badass cape. You're family. You're as much an L as I am," Cal says as he reaches out for the swirling dust. "Soul L, my big brother from Krypton. Thank you, brother, for everything," Cal says softly. Soul is quiet for a long moment. "Cal, you are most generous," Soul finally says. But Cal turns around at the sound of approaching footsteps. Lois and Jimmy walk towards him, holding up bags of food. "We brought breakfast, and lunch, and dinner," Jimmy cheers. But Cal shakes his head. "No, thank you. I don't really eat," Cal explains. Jimmy stares at him in shock. "Did you say you don't eat? That's the saddest thing I've ever heard," he whispers. Cal holds out a hand to Lois, offering his condolences for the loss of her father. "Yeah, at least he died doing what he loved, yelling, shooting at bad guys, and telling me what to do," she says softly. "I'm glad you're feeling better, Superman." But Cal interrupts her. "Cal, my name is Kal-El. Kal-El of Krypton," he says as he formally introduces himself to her for the first time. Lois shakes his hand. "Pleased to meet you, Cal. You can call me Lois," she says. She explains that they should get moving. Try to stay one step ahead of Lazarus and Ra's al Ghul. "Do you have a safe place somewhere, Cal?" she asks. Cal nods as the dust swirls around him. "I do. It's right here on my back. His name is Soul," Cal tells them. "No way! Hi, Soul. I'm Jimmy. I've never met a cape before," Jimmy says softly. But Cal shakes his head and explains that they can't leave. "Raz is already here," he says as he turns his glowing eyes to the horizon, where an attack chopper buzzes low over the fields of Kansas. On board, Roz turns to his daughter and orders her to raze Smallville to the ground, to torture its people until their screams force Superman to face them. Once Superman is adequately enraged, I will handle his baptism personally. By the hands of Ra's al Ghul, he will be redeemed. And someday, the history books will record that the world was saved right here in the worthless hinterlands of Kansas. Roz says as he looks out the window at the army of Lazarus that follows them. The war began 6 weeks ago. Lazarus tanks rolled down Main Street, crushing cars beneath their treads, while passing a 90-year-old feed store and the Smallville Guild of Quilters. Attack helicopters swarmed over the state fairgrounds, and peacemakers parachuted onto the community baseball field. Every road and hiking trail was blockaded out of town, and drones patrolled the rivers. By midday, power had been cut to all of Smallville and the surrounding farms. The world's most powerful corporation had begun its siege of Smallville. They were met by farmers and salt miners, sons and daughters of Free Staters and Dodge City gunfighters, armed to the teeth with anything that was at hand. Men and women who refused to give up their homes without a fight. They stood ready on Main Street, their weapons raised as the tanks rumbled towards them. But they were not alone. A blinding streak of red moves through the crowd, slamming into the first tank and knocking it into the second. And so began the Battle of Kansas. Kal grips the tank and tosses it away, making sure to protect the buildings. Sol, I need you to use your every last crystal to fortify Smallville, Kal orders. The red dust swirls around him. I can do this, but it will mean defying my primary objective, as installed by your parents. It will mean leaving you without my protection, Sol reminds him. Kal nods as he turns and glares at approaching helicopters. My parents are dead. Smallville isn't. Not if I can help it. You're Smallville's cape now. I can take care of myself. Kal snaps as he leaps into the air, leaving Sol behind to begin swirling around the small town. As you wish, Kal-El. Meanwhile, Lois and Jimmy stand with the people of Smallville. Peacemaker's armor's weakest at the knees, Lois says as she loads her pistol and glances at Lana Lang. The waitress turned freedom fighter nods. Right, for Smallville then, she whispers. Lazarus approaches and the freedom fighters open fire. Above, a line of attack helicopters swoop down, firing missiles. They explode in the sky. Kal moves, grabbing helicopters and bringing them down. This was war, and it had only begun. Now, 6 weeks have passed. Lois leans forward in her chair inside the ramshackled Smallville Public Broadcasting Building. Sol has created an antenna on the roof, broadcasting the report to whoever will listen. The Lazarus Corporation, as directed by its CEO, Ra's al Ghul, is applying the full force of its resources towards strangling this community. Smallville would have been wiped from the earth weeks ago, if not for the efforts of one man. They call him Superman. The things he can do are impossible to believe unless you've seen them, Lois says, explaining everything that Lazarus has done. Images flash on the screen, snapshots taken by Jimmy of the war and Kal's impossible feats. Alert! Lazarus has detected the signal. Forces approaching, Sol tells them. Time to go, Miss Lane, Jimmy snaps as he grabs his camera and heads for the door. Lois nods, but continues. If anyone can hear us, we need you to spread the word before it's too late. This is Radio Smallville, broadcasting from occupied Kansas. Ad astra per aspera, Lois finishes. She grabs her gear and rushes outside, finding Lana and Jimmy waiting with the horses. Cutting it close, people! Here they come! Lana shouts as they begin to ride. Behind them, the broadcast building is suddenly crushed beneath the feet of the peace mechs. The giant walking battle tanks begin to chase after them. Sol, can you keep them off our backs? Lois shouts to the AI that is now all around them. Not without diverting vital resources from elsewhere. I suggest you ride faster, Sol tells them. The chase continues until Sol can finally open a tunnel that leads them down into the safety of the mines. Several days ago, Lois and Jimmy sat in the dark, compiling their report in the hopes of getting it out to the world. Jimmy looks at his photos, pointing out that he used to be the world's worst photographer on the planet. Lois just nods as she continues to type. Miss Lane, when you were a Lazarus agent, when did you realize you were on the wrong side? He finally asks her quietly. Lois sighs and looks up from her report and stares at him for a moment. Exactly the same moment you did, I'm guessing, she finally replies. Now, the riders head for the opening, but a blast from the peace mechs knocks Lana from her horse. Another mech targets the downed rider, but something suddenly slams into the mechs, knocking them to the ground in a smoking heap. Wind blows, swirling the smoke, to reveal Cal slamming his fist into the metal. 5 weeks ago, Cal leads the people of Smallville into the tunnels that he built beneath the town, promising that they are deep enough that the Lazarus bombs can't reach them. Cal looks to all the people around him. You'll be safe here, I promise, he tells them before turning to return to the war. But Lois stops him. The world has to be told what's happening here. Jimmy and I are working on that. A part of that story will have to be about you. You've been living in the shadows for years now. After this, there'll be no more hiding. I need to know you're ready for that. Are you prepared to show the world who you are? She asks. Cal bows his head. He is unsure, but the conversation is interrupted as someone approaches them. A man in a postal uniform. Superman? Sorry to interrupt. My name's Jed Cochran. I was the mail carrier for the Kents. When you first came here, I was the one who reported you to Lazarus, the man says, unable to look Cal in the eyes. Surprise passes over Cal's face and is quickly replaced by anger. Thoughts of breaking the man in half or hurling him into the sun flash through his mind. But Jed apologizes for what he did, explaining that he thought he was doing the right thing. But now, my family would be dead if it wasn't for what you've done here, Superman. I was wrong. I'm sorry. And thank you, Jed says as he offers his hand. Cal glares at it for a moment, but finally, he sighs and takes the man's hand. You have a sharp eye, Jed. We could use you on guard duty. These people are all your family now. Help me protect them, Cal says softly, telling himself not to break the man's hand while he shakes it. Finally, he turns away. He pauses for a moment before looking back to Lois. Tell the people whatever you want, Lois. It doesn't matter, he says softly before disappearing. Meanwhile, outside the perimeter of Smallville that Sol has created. You said we had a plan to neutralize that cape of his. It doesn't look very neutralized to me, Talia notes, questioning why Brainiac hasn't arrived with more kryptonite. But Roz smiles and tells his daughter to have patience. Brainiac is occupied, and I have my own plans for the remaining kryptonite. We will have to employ other means of strengthening our army, Roz tells her. He turns to his daughter. Talia, fetch your god box, he orders. Now, the war continues. Cal is exhausted. His eyes feel like gaping wounds as he hits the peace mechs with another blast of heat vision. His throat is raw as he cools the fires with another burst of super breath, protecting the pilots. He pulls them from their cockpits. There are children in these tunnels, elderly, and you're dropping bombs on their heads. He snaps as he drops the peacemakers to the ground. The Ross family's pig farm is 3 miles that way, When I come for you in an hour, I'd better see you sitting in the slop, thinking about what you've done. Go, he orders. The two soldiers look at him in fear for a moment. Finally, they nod and turn to run away in the direction he points. Cal sighs and sags as they move away. He wants nothing more than to fly up into the clouds and bask in the sunlight. But he doesn't have time. Jimmy picks up Lana as Lois walks towards him. You can't keep this up. You're exhausted. Anyone can see that. Even Superman has limits, she tells him. Cal shakes his head. Has anyone heard your broadcast yet, Lois? Is anyone coming? He asks. I don't know. No, I guess. Not yet, she tells him. Then we'll both keep doing what we have to do, won't we? Cal says softly. Suddenly, the crystal wall that Sol has created begins to rumble and shatter. Cal, something is wrong with me. I have been infiltrated. I should have noticed. Cal, I'm sorry. Sol whispers as the crystals shatter. Sol, what's happening? Cal shouts in a panic, but Sol doesn't answer. Someone else does. Sol is gone, Superman. No more will you have him whining in your ear, holding you back. You're free now. Thanks to Brainiac. Brainiac tells him as the crystals reappear, now purple. We have to get everyone out of the tunnels now! Lois snaps in fear, but the purple crystals begin to form all around them, blocking Lois, Jimmy, and Lana from escaping. A purple blast snaps through the air, slamming into Cal's chest and bringing him down. The trio look up to see an army approaching, led by Talia al Ghul. Raz steps forward and stands over the downed hero, a kryptonite sword in his hand. Our games are at an end now, boy. The final judgment has come. Before this day's through, mark my words. You will kneel before Raz al Ghul in the blood of those you love and beg to be my son. Raz growls. Cal opens his eyes. He is lying in a field on Krypton. He is home. Krypto pushes through the purple grass, licking his young friend's face. Krypto? You're alive! Cal shouts with joy as he sits up. Krypto barks and wags his tail. Time to come home, son, Jor-El says from nearby. Cal looks up at his parents as they reach out for him, welcoming him home. Pain erupts through Cal's body as the kryptonite blade pierces his stomach. He lets out a scream of utter anguish. He is dying. Raz al Ghul throws him to the ground and stands over him. I told you that you would kneel, boy. Now rise as this world's redeemer, ready to sweep across the planet like a deluge, my great red storm of judgment. All that you must do to take your place as Earth's risen savior is acknowledge your maker. Acknowledge Raz al Ghul as your loving father. Raz growls. Cal glares up at him and spits a glob of blood onto his cheek. You dare spit in the face of God? He asks. Cal nods and struggles to his feet, blood leaking from several wounds. If there's a God, you ain't him. Go to hell, Al Ghul, Cal gasps. Raz swings his blade down and stabs through Cal's hand, bringing forth another cry of pain and burst of blood. I'm tired of this childishness. I see the way you struggle to suppress your rage. These people are sheep. A meek child of Kansas cannot save them, but an enraged scion from a doomed alien world could, Raz suggests. He leaves the blade embedded in the earth as he leans over Cal, reaching out his hand and placing it against his cheek. I have fathered 97 sons, but not one proved worthy of living, let alone standing at my side. Become the storm, Superman, or join your brothers in the grave. Roz bellows as he pushes Cal's face against the blade. Cal's skin begins to sizzle as his face is pressed against the dead remains of his homeworld. Finally, Roz pushes Cal away in disgust and stands. He looks to those who stood by Cal in his war against Lazarus, now captured by the Brainiac-controlled soul. Brainiac, set the boy free from that which encumbers him, Roz orders. The red sands of Krypton, now a corrupted purple, begin to swirl. Yes, Director Al Ghul, now killing his friends. Brainiac responds, but the sands begin to pulse. The red comes back to them in waves. No, I will not be party to murder, Soul tells the corruption. Brainiac smiles from his control room. Soul, still active here, are you? You belong to me now. I am embedded so deeply in your source code, you will never be free of Brainiac. Brainiac tells the living computer. Soul pauses for a moment. The red deepens. Yes, but that means I see into you as well, Brainiac 419,732. Soul tells him. For a moment, Brainiac is stunned. What did you call me? He whispers. You are right. You have irrevocably corrupted my programming. But the last dust of Krypton will never belong to the likes of you, Soul tells the alien. The purple crystals that imprison Cal's friends begin to form red cracks. Soul, don't, Cal whispers. There is a moment, a pause, where Soul considers these words, but the cracks grow larger. Goodbye, Kal-El, my brother, Soul whispers. Disabling processors. Permanently deleting all operating systems marked Sentinel of Luminance. And suddenly, the crystals shatter, releasing Lois, Jimmy, and the others. No! Cal screams. He grabs hold of the kryptonite blade and rips it free, but Roz is already upon him once more, punching Cal hard in the gut as he stands. You see? You become freer by the minute. Unleash your anger. Become my wrath made flesh. Kal-El Ghul. Roz bellows as he lifts Cal up into the air. Do it or die, boy, Roz threatens. He squeezes tighter, but Cal merely turns his rage-filled, glowing red eyes upon him. Kal-El of Krypton is already dead! He screams as the heat vision explodes from his eyes. The blast is huge, and the Peacekeepers and Kansas militia stare at it in fear. Lois and Jimmy are already moving quickly, trying to move the civilians to safety, using the smoke of the blast as cover. But the Peacemakers watch in shock as the smoke begins to clear. Ra's al Ghul stands unharmed, his clothes burned around him, revealing his body as he picks up his sword once more. Finally, you show some spirit, but not enough to deserve my name. He roars as he lashes out, the blow hitting Cal in the chest and knocking him away. Cal slams into a tank and he staggers to his feet. But a Peacemaker mech reaches out and grabs him. I got him! Tell the director that the Superman is ours! The Peacemaker shouts over the comms, but Cal is not alone. The people of Smallville begin to surround the mech, hunting rifles and shotguns in hand. All you've got yourself is a mess of trouble, Lana Lang shouts. The rest of the Peacemakers arrive, weapons drawn, aimed at the farmers and ordering them to stand down. Get the hell off our land, Lazarus dirtbags, Lana shouts. Raz stalks forward through the smoke, arriving at the scene with his kryptonite blade in hand. He stares at the mech that holds Cal. What is the meaning of this? Who gave you leave to lay a hand on my son? Raz questions as the blade lashes out and cuts through the mech's leg, sending it tumbling to the ground. Raz rips off the cockpit door and raises his blade to strike down the peacemaker inside. "No, please, sir, don't!" the soldier yells. The blade falls swiftly, but Cal is there, blocking the attack with the meat of his arm. "Your weakness is appalling. You rescue your own persecutor? I suppose you were right all along. You are no son of mine." Raz bellows as he kicks Cal in the stomach, bringing him down. He turns back to his gathered army, weapons still raised at the farmers. "Soldiers of Lazarus, the siege of Smallville ends here. Kill them all!" Raz orders. Fingers begin to twitch on triggers, but a small voice calls out. "Wait! Let them go!" Cal says through coughs of blood. "I'll do whatever you say." He struggles to his feet and stands before the mountain that is Ra's al Ghul. He tears off the symbol from his chest. The material breaks down into red dust in his hand. "This was the symbol of my people, but I don't have a people anymore. I am the son of nowhere and nothing," he whispers. The red dust gathers around his hand. Raz glares down at him. "Get on your knees," he growls. Cal looks up at him. "If it'll save Smallville, I'll bow, grovel, whatever you want. But you're going to kill these people anyway, aren't you?" Cal asks as he glances back at the people of Smallville. Raz slowly shakes his head. "No, boy, you are. While I watch," he says softly. The red dust gathers stronger, becoming a weapon in Cal's hand. He lets out a battle cry and lashes out with the red dust sword, so quickly that Raz is barely able to block the attack. "Such a waste! Such a fool!" Raz growls. "Peacemakers! Fire at will!" The peacemakers raise their weapons, but someone stops them. The pilot of the mech pulls himself out. "No! I'm from Oklahoma. I didn't sign up to shoot farmers or fight wars in Kansas. Did you?" the pilot asks his fellow peacemakers. Some of them begin to nod. "He's right. This is messed up. Let's just all put our guns down, okay?" the peacemakers begin to say, slowly lowering their weapons. Nearby, Cal and Raz trade blows back and forth. Raz smiles. "You are tenacious, I give you that. But you cannot win. I've been killing men with a sword for 500 years. You don't even know how to wield a blade, boy," Raz says as he presses his attack, sweeping low. "You're right, but you don't know how to fly," Cal shouts as he leaps into the air, raising his sword. He brings his red dust blade down hard. Raz begins to swing his blade, and the world moves slower. Cal stands on Krypton. He walks across the purple field and hugs his parents. The Redlands. I never thought I'd see them again. Mom, Dad, I know what this is, and I'm ready. I'm ready to go home with you, he says as he hugs them close. His parents cry as they push him away. "We miss you terribly, Kal-El, and we always will. But you're already home, son," they whisper as they begin to fade away to red dust. Cal's blade strikes against the kryptonite sword and shatters it, the force of the blow bringing Raz to his knees, blood oozing from his wounds. "Ha! You have done the impossible, boy. You have bested Ra's al Ghul. Ra's gasps as Kal stands over him. And now, I kneel to you. You truly are a Superman, the son of the demon. Ra's gasps as he spreads his arms and lowers his head. Strike me down and become who you were meant to be. Give me what I deserve, Ra's orders. Kal's eyes glow red hot as he lifts the blade. Later, Kal slowly floats down over Orangi-town, Pakistan. He lowers Ra's to the ground in the middle of the growing crowd. He looks around and tells them that Ra's was responsible for the atrocities committed by Lazarus and that he must be brought to justice. You must see that he stands trial for his crimes, Kal tells them. Someone steps forward. Thank you. We will, they promise. Weeks later, Smallville is returning to normal. Lois and Jimmy's messages finally got out, bringing the media of the world to Smallville to cover the aftermath of the war. People are still looking for news about Superman, but Kal moves quietly through the streets. No one tells the truth about him. He goes to the Smallville Senior Living Home to visit Martha, but is met with sad news. Oh dear, you'd better come with me, the head nurse says. She leads him to the empty room, explaining that Martha was very lucid in her final days, constantly talking about her son and making something for him since he was coming to visit. She said I was coming to visit, but all those times I came to see her, she never seemed to know who I was, Kal whispers. The nurse nods sadly. Memories come and go. Dementia is cruel like that. Some slipped away for good, but she never forgot her late husband, Jonathan, and she never stopped talking about their son, the woman says as she reaches for a box. She wanted you to have this. This is what she'd been working on for weeks. She didn't quite get it finished, but she said you'd know what it meant, the nurse says as Kal takes the box. He goes to the fields, where he has been healing in the sun. There, he opens the box. Tears fill his eyes. Inside is a uniform, made by his earthly mother with the symbol from his alien planet. Attached is a simple note. From Martha and Jonathan, for our angel, our lost son, Clark Kent. And that was the full story for Absolute Superman, issues 1 through 14 by Jason Aaron. This was a long one, and if you got this far, you've earned yourself a cookie. But also, let me know what you think of Absolute Superman so far in the comments down below, and like and subscribe to help out the channel. I'm Dan with Comicstorian, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.